The end. Those are the words that all stories, triumphant or tragic, inevitably reach. For three teams today, this is the end of their stage, of their ambitions, of their dreams. But for one champion, this is just the start of a new journey that ends in Montreal. So welcome all to the end of NAL Stage 2 2024. Welcome to the final day of Last Chance qualifiers. I'm Corbeck. Alongside me, two sharply dressed sharp minds from the world of Siege, Laxing and Foxay here. As we get ready to start, guys, I'm looking forward to being here with you two at the end of all things.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it as well. Obviously, today is the day that we are going to be sending one of these four teams to the Montreal Major. But I mean, as for yesterday, I think with any of these brackets, that was the most surprising due to the fact that CL4 Life did end up getting that win over Cloud9 East Coast.
Yeah, I don't think anybody expected CL4 Life to win besides the team themselves. Obviously, the reigning major champs being knocked out was such an upset, but I mean, it was well deserved, well fought from CL4 Life. And I'd say this side of the bracket completely shocked everybody. I mean, not only with the CL4 Life upset, but I'd say Wildcard looking like a top four team. They've woken up, finally gotten into full wheels. And aside from the first play day that we saw, it was kind of sloppy. The teams that we expected to win, M80, OXG. I mean, it wasn't to the skill that they could have brought. But then Wildcard and CL4 Life just completely upsetting. The underdog story is alive in this LCQ bracket, and I'm excited, and I hope it keeps going.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I think all of us were a little bit stunned here by the fact that we saw this go down live. And I mean, it was such a long, grueling match, too, that I think we were all couldn't quite process exactly what we had seen at the end of it. Though Packer, he could certainly process it. But here's where the bracket sits right now. Our semifinal fixtures are set. All three of these games, by the way, folks, they are being played today. We will walk away from here with the team going to the major. It's going to be a long haul today, guys.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this really isn't just going to be a marathon. I mean, we talked about CL4 Life going to 3 maps, the distance. This, if you are the winning team today, you have to potentially play 3 maps first, take a little breather, and then play another 3 maps later in the day. It really is the biggest marathon of talent that you could get going. And so far, I mean, CL4 Life has had that passion that's pulled them through. Some of these Pro League teams, they've been here before. They're kind of tired, you know, especially if they're underestimating the other teams. They don't got that passion, but like the underdog story, I feel, yeah, that drive, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think CL4 Life, for me also, that's the game that I'm looking forward to the most, actually, due to the fact I don't think they've showed their entire hand in what cards they have unveiled yet going into that wild card matchup. But even for the M80 Oxygen game, I mean, we saw a completely different Oxygen from what we haven't seen throughout the stage. And then for M80, they're still a little bit shaky, but again, they do tend to get a little better the next game. So hopefully that game can be as close, but I definitely am looking forward to the second game of the day.
Yeah, and let's talk about our first match here, M80 versus Oxygen. Obviously, M80, the cracks are maybe starting to show a little bit, right? Oxygen, on the other hand, we feel like, you know, they're hitting a pretty good form here.
Yeah, Oxygen's hitting their stride. It could just be that they own Luminosity. Every time they get in the server with them, they just play that much better. It could be the case, but OXG really looks like they've been playing a lot better to the standard that we expected them to come in this stage with. So a little late, but it's about time, and it is possible that they could get away with the LCQ win.
I think this game really is going to come down to just sheer consistency and being sound in your fundamentals and how you are going to approach your matches today. Because from what we've seen from both teams, at least Oxygen, throughout the stage, they didn't look that great. They kept every game relatively close, but couldn't get over that hurdle where now they have. And then M80, they obviously fell short, and they now are in the same situation with the same amount of mistakes. So again, it's really going to come down to just how well these teams are both going to play at a fundamental and team-oriented level.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And I mean, we talk about M80, right, as a roster that I think we are all surprised a little bit by how well they perform in the playoffs. They get here to the LCQs, and it does really start to feel like maybe, just maybe, some of the fundamental flaws in the structure of the team are kind of starting to show when they put under pressure.
Yeah, I mean, they absolutely scraped by with that T2 win, and that's not exactly where you want to be as the so-called favorites going into this LCQ. They had such a good playoff performance, and obviously the Academy, nothing to take away from them, but just being in a position that you have to go 3 maps is not it's not where you want to be. And of course, you got to ask yourself, what's wrong with M80? Why are they in this position in the first place? And I'll tell you, it comes down to the maps. I mean, M80, for some reason, they keep going to Bank. They keep bringing up these maps, these big maps, but specifically Bank. I've been saying it the past couple play days, every time M80 plays, stop going to the map. Fundamentally, this team is just not all that sound at the map. They are unable to play off of each other. It just doesn't work to their play style, and that's fine. But losing to SSG Academy should be the final nail in the coffin of, hey, let's stop going to this map. We play better on coordinated maps that force us to play off of each other. They have big players, amazing players that are able to spawn up, win rounds, but you've got to put them in the position to do that. And unfortunately on Bank, it's too spread out that they're unable to do that. But if we're speaking about big plays and big players, you can't go without saying that without bringing up Spoit. He's been one of the biggest lifebloods of M80. He's been the main reason that they won against SSG Academy, that they were able to scrape by that win against them. And if it wasn't for him, currently the top 2 rated player in the NAL, if it wasn't for him yesterday, we could be having a different discussion. Unfortunately for SSG Academy, Spoit showed up just like he always does. And of course, I mean, he was the biggest reason on why they ended up winning. But you play against a team that fights back and shoots back at the same caliber as M80, we could be having a different story going into that finals game.
I completely agree. And I mean, Spoit has been performing every single game so far. And we've talked about M80. They can't keep relying on these solo plays to be able to win them the games. In reality, that's exactly what's been happening. We have been relying on those. They have been relying on those. And you don't want to find yourself now in a position where you can get yourself into this final, you can get yourself to Montreal and still be relying on that, because you are going to be going against the best of the best when you make it to Montreal, where those solo plays are going to be immediately punished. Teams are going to collapse on top of that, knowing that that is your biggest, not your weakness, but your biggest thing that promotes your success throughout your team, that pivots you to have that success. So I do want to see a lot more team play coming out of them today, and then pushing that into a final to see it just completely be re-illustrated in how this team should be playing at a fundamental, and how well we know that they can play as a team, but that starts with going against Oxygen.
Yeah, and going against Oxygen, I think, is going to be more of a challenge than M80 probably originally expected, just because, you know, they had a bit of a rough start in their game here in the LCQ. Then they really stepped into their own, possibly looking the best that we have seen them all stage here in the NAL.
I mean, yeah, Oxygen is definitely finding their rhythm. There's no doubt about that. Sure, you could call it a fluke because they were only playing against LG that we see that success being bred from, but that doesn't really matter, because as long as you're improving at the end of the day, that is the main focus here. And when you look at that Cafe map and the entire map as a whole, their entire series, we saw Cafe as being Oxygen's one of their worst maps. Yes, you can see it was a 7-5, but when you look at that scoreboard, everyone is relatively close outside of the bottom. But still, with it being 7-5, there was a couple clips that had me questioning in this game. Is Oxygen still there? Are they still having these issues? And they absolutely were. Granted, these were close rounds. You see here, this is a round where Newers has this death tracker on top of this player inside drum. He could use his teammate, feed this information. He doesn't. We've talked about this. They like to go for 1v1s. He loses that. This round ends up falling apart. Then we get into round 10. This was a beautifully actually executed round from Oxygen. Very good team coordination here. They get all the map control that they possibly could want. But the question is, Pat, where are you? Where's the bomb? Why is it not going? Why is the diffuser not being planted here? And the reality is, it comes down to that lack of team coordination and chemistry, because the reality is they did the hard job. They got the site, they got the control, but because they weren't coordinated, that is exactly where this then falls short and falls back into Luminosity's hands. Now we switch over to Lair. This was the turning point for Oxygen. This is where we saw the teamwork. Look at the stats now. Everyone is in relatively within 1 to 2 kills from one another. And then I have a round that demonstrates how well their coordination was, how patient they were, because this round 6 in Lair, it got really scrappy, where this originally was just a constant back and forth. But what I really appreciate about this round more than anything, and highlighting Hat specifically, is he knows Newers up top. He has the bomb. They know where this player is because one of their guys just recently got picked. He could go for the plant. He could rush for it, but he doesn't. He takes his time. He waits to set up with Newers, waits for Newers to be able to cover him to go for this post plant, and they execute it beautifully. Now Hat realizes, Newers, you're with me. I'm going to go for the plant, get my back, and then that's exactly what Newers does. Now we transition into Cafe. This is another round they did a really good job clearing and understanding the take that they wanted to do, and they execute. Everyone executes together, and they close this round out flawlessly. And it just goes to show that they completely transitioned from that first map and switched it up with every single map, and having that teamwork, having that coordination. And again, and when you look at these stats, once again, everyone is relatively close in kill comparison, 1 or 2 off. And this is a scary oxygen now, because this is the team that we knew that they could be throughout the stage. And if they can keep up this performance now going against the M80 that is looking shaky, I can see Oxygen absolutely running away with the series and putting themselves in a grand final.
Right, and a big player that I feel like you mentioned a lot of was Hat. I mean, he's a player that hasn't had that much to shine throughout the stage, and he's slowly been getting better and better, and he's been finding success. And it's nice to see him get his confidence back, because when he's able to play amongst the ranks and they're all playing together, focus on the strat, I mean, you saw it right there. I mean, it was a night and day difference from map 1 into the next 2.
Yeah, and you know, another player that we absolutely have to highlight that we haven't been able to put in the spotlight too much is actually Yaga. Yaga has been stepping up tremendously, and if you were looking at that stat line from each and every single one of those maps, he was topping the chart for this team. And when you think about Yaga, he is a phenomenal player. When you compare even his last stage, he was the top-rated player in North America, where this stage he has definitely fell off slightly, but the fact that he is now coming alive in the LCQ, not only him, but the entire team as a whole, that is a great omen for this team to set themselves up for success, to push themselves further into this LCQ, push themselves into a grand final, and possibly clinch their spot in Montreal.
No doubt about it. I mean, it's good to see Yaga coming into his own. It's good to see this Oxygen team, I think, coming into their own as well. They're going to be pretty dangerous here for M80. Obviously, we know how important this match is. Let's hear from the players. This is Hyper and Gomez talking about where their teams are at here in the LCQ.
Hi, I'm Hyper. I'm a player for M80, and we just won our first LCQ game.
Hey, I'm Gomez from OXG, and we just won our first game in the LCQ against OG. I think the most thing we're proud of is just playing with the team, and people were just really respecting my calls. Like every time I called something, people were just doing it instantly. So I think that just made our team play really good. We were all on the same page and all communicating, doing the things that needed to be done, and just showed in the game.
The start was kind of cold. We've always had issues with starting matches off cold, and the matchup against a tier 2 team is a little tough. They're still very good for being a tier 2 team, but they're kind of playing with the mentality of, oh, we got nothing to lose, we're playing M80. You know, it's always not fun playing those certain matchups, but nonetheless, we pulled through. We played our game. We played confident.
Yaga's been playing some great Siege. I think we usually have him in the ops, Yang, Blitz, Monty, whatever it is, and if those operators have a good day, you pretty much win the game by default. So Yaga was just carrying us throughout the rounds.
I'm gonna obviously say Spoit. He won a 1vx. I won a 1vx. I think we all stepped up on different occasions, whether it be calling or fragging.
I think so far we played them twice. We lost to them both times, but we didn't lose to them. We just lost to ourselves. Every time we just go up against them, we start off good, and then we just ended up throwing. And I just know for this time it's not gonna happen.
I think OXG was kind of underwhelming. I thought that they were gonna be a solid roster, and they performed pretty poorly. However, scrimming them leading up to LCQ, I actually think they've made big improvements. I don't know if it's just a scrim mojo they got going on, but I'm actually hoping they do really well and prove people wrong, because they've got stuff figured out.
They're not really impactful players. I feel like it's just Willie, but everyone else, I think KK has some good games. They're very explosive. Sometimes the run will just go quiet, and then out of nowhere they just go all together at the same time.
And I think Gomez is going to be instrumental for them. So they're going to need him instructing everything and calling things on point, because it seems to be their weakness. It's not like they're not hitting shots. It's just they're moving people around poorly.
I mean, I think the goal is to make the major, but the actual goal is just to keep improving. We had a bad stage. We just improved so much throughout these last week that we just want to keep improving. If it's supposed to happen, it's going to happen. We're just going to keep improving.
The team vibes are overall high, and we expect nothing but winning the whole thing. Anything short of that is a failure in my eyes. It's been a while since I've qualified for a LAN, and I really want to be in Montreal.
Both of them, I think, being very professional about this, very clear-eyed about what awaits them and what they're going to have to do here today, and both honestly presenting a healthy respect for one another to a certain extent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also got to correct myself. I said Yago was the #1 rated player last stage. No, that was last year. So my fault for that one. But no, yeah, both these teams definitely shown respect for one another. They know each other down to a T. I mean, Gomez said it, you know, they only rely on Spoit. And realistically, that kind of has been the case so far for this roster. But again, we have seen glimpses of success coming out of M80 when they can work together, when they can make these plays and not rely on these solo plays. But even on the back front of Oxygen, they haven't had, again, they had a bad stage, but realistically, again, when you looked at that standing, every game was close. But now Oxygen just is looking 10 times better than what we've seen. So again, if M80 really wants to bring it to Oxygen, they have to be better from the team fundamental level from what we've currently been seeing even in this LCQ.
I mean, just from watching Oxygen, the way that they're able to play a lot more coordinated on attack, it looks like the ideology and the mentality has changed. But for M80, it comes down all to the maps. Because if we see a bank here today, oh, I might just rip my hair out. I'm afraid we do not see a bank. But it's still up. Bank is still up.
Yeah, they've got it.
So, I mean, Clubhouse is a good even playing field. Oxygen, Labs, I mean, that's a good Oxygen map.
Both good maps.
Going to that map.
All right, they did it for you.
Let's go. I mean, we love that. We love a bank ban. And so I don't think we're going to get to a lair, but I think all three maps are very good default maps for both teams. I will say, though, when we talked about big maps, Labs is also an issue for M80. They're currently 0-3 on it throughout the regular stage up until now. Clubhouse is their best map, though. They're 4-1. So, you know, I could see each team respectively getting their own map win, and then we'll have to see what happens on a new lair. But I don't know. Honestly, I could see OXG walking away with this with a 2-0.
I was just about to say, I can absolutely see a 2-0 happening here. I mean, yeah, you have found success 4-1 on Clubhouse. Yes, it is a default map. There shouldn't be anything too crazy that should stump you or throw you off or that you can even do to the opponent. But because it is a default map, and if you do feel like you're better than Oxygen, you should not take them to such a simple map that they are also going to be comfortable on. And then you move to the Labs. Again, that's a good map for Oxygen. I think they'll find success going into that. But then especially like you were saying, lair on a big map where M80 can struggle, where we just saw Oxygen. That's where we saw a big turning point for them. I can't really see this map favoring too much going in M80's favor here. But again, this first map can really be the true decider of what M80's future is going to look like for the rest of this match.
And you guys are both taking Oxygen here, which, you know, that backs up what you guys have been saying. And you've been Oxygen believers. You were Oxygen believers the other day, and you were proven right, which I appreciate. I mean, I think the only question that I would have is it a bit of a mistake that Oxygen didn't take bank when it was on the table, just because we've never seen M80 be able to pull off anything good on that map?
They aren't good at it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a good Oxygen map. Obviously, I think Bank you can win through strategy, and I don't necessarily know if Oxygen is the most utility sound team at the moment. But going to Labs, that also is M80's one of weaker maps because we've talked about it. They're not the best at running the shields, running those X Factor operators. They don't play around Kino on it that successfully. And if looking at the maps, map 2 and 3 look like Oxygen's maps. The best chance for M80 to win is taking that first one. If they don't, I just unfortunately think it's going to be Oxygen all the way. M80's best chance is to win map 1 and then make us eat our words on that Labs on a big map. But I don't know. For the faint of heart, if you're an M80 fan, I would definitely be stressed out right now.
Absolutely.
Well, there you have it, folks. It's time to jump into our first match of this very long day, so allow me to turn it over to a pair of casters who would be the best at reading soothing bedtime stories. It's Intero and Flynn.
Well, thank you so very much. We're excited to cast through this final day of the Last Chance qualifiers. And Rob, one of these teams will indeed make it to the Montreal Major. You heard from the two squads themselves before we got into the matchup. And the desk seems to think that OXG has the advantage. The players obviously are going to hype themselves up. Do you agree? Do you think OXG is the better team of these two?
I think if you look at the progression of the stage, things got better for Oxygen. That was not a very hard bar to clear, though. The way that things began for OXG this stage wasn't pretty, and I think a lot of people shared Hyper's sentiment in the pregame package in his interview talking about the belief in the Oxygen roster and the belief that this could be a contender. We'll see what this game holds, but I would say M80 are the clear favorites coming in. I think many would agree that M80, with their performance against Space Station Academy, it wasn't the cleanest of performances, but it still got them across the finish line. It got them a W, and they're here in the semifinals with the opportunity to qualify for the major. I'm gonna go contrary to the desk here. I'm going to take M80 as the prediction. I wouldn't be surprised if OXG makes it a battle, given what we saw against Luminosity on Monday. But yeah, that is an interesting pick from Fox and Lax.
I will say, if you just look at the matchups that happened yesterday, Luminosity versus OXG and then M80 versus Space Station, I think you have to ask the question, which had the harder adversary and had their hands full more? OXG and Luminosity are both Pro League level teams. And in terms of the numbers, Luminosity was statistically a more formidable foe in the regular stage than Oxygen was. And yet Oxygen cleared Luminosity with greater ease than M80 cleared Space Station Academy. Things looked a little bit scary there on that consulate matchup. The third map yesterday of M80 versus SSGA, or 2 days ago technically, sorry, I'm just getting them all blurred together. M80 had their hands full with an academy team that doesn't have official pro play reps. Does that not cause you some concern with M80?
Well, I think in a similar vein to what we saw yesterday out of CL for Life, who we'll see in the second semi-final, defeating Cloud9 Beast Coast. I think some of these tier 2 teams, when they get to play like Hyper talked about as well, with no reservations, with no opportunity to suffer any kind of real loss here, you know, the stack or the pressure is on the professional team to be able to contend and to be able to push for that major spot. For these tier 2 teams that come in through the open qualifiers, there really is nothing to lose. You can play extremely loose and extremely free without having any really reservations about making a mistake that ends up costing them something significant. They can swing for the fences, and if they miss a few times, then it is what it is. You're the tier 2 team. The odds are stacked against you. I think, like Hyper talked about in the pregame, that's a tough position to be in as the professional team, trying to stay coordinated and trying to stay in a static regiment, as compared to something that is just pure chaos on the other side of the board.
We go to one of the most played maps, or rather, I should change my wording here. The most played map in almost every single region, which is Clubhouse. We used to see way back in the day Clubhouse, Border, and Oregon as the 3 most played maps. Things have changed, not just in terms of the teams, the site rotation, but the map pool as well. Oregon is no longer in the map pool, so we take Old Reliable out of the map pool. You got to introduce something else. We see Lair. It'll be our decider if we make it all the way there. And frankly, with the way that these teams played yesterday, which was that they win their own maps, they struggle on the other map, they go to the tiebreaker, it would not surprise me at all if we see M80 win this, Oxygen wins Labs, and then we go to Lair to determine which of these 2 teams is the best. But Clubhouse has been so reliable for these squads. You know, it's got 3 very good bomb sites, 4 playable bomb sites. There are a couple maps like that, but not every single map has that unique characteristic. Bar Stage shows up more than I think a lot of teams had expected, and more than the viewers certainly expected. But there are a lot of tools that both the attackers and defenders have on this map. To me, this is really the closest to Classic Siege that we see. It is a gunfight heavy map once you've done the work to get through with your utility, but this is a utility-based map, and Rainbow Six is a utility-based game. So I will say something that I always hear played in the commercial before the matchups. In the great voice of Dev Marta, this is Siege at its best. And seeing Siege on Clubhouse, especially our first map of the last day of NA's LCQs, I couldn't imagine another starting point.
I think right now as well, with the Monty ban, but not providing any kind of resistance on the roam for Oxygen, they're feeling very comfortable in being static. And even, you know, Gomez talked about it in the pregame. We've heard it from plenty of teams that have played against M80. They are sudden and explosive. They can turn a round that seems stagnant and absolutely light it on fire. So for Oxygen to be very steady inside of the bomb site for now to begin things off in this best of 3, probably the vibe that they're trying to cultivate. I think right now as well for the clear that M80, losing the Montaigne, they still have the Blitz to pull out of the back pocket. We often see these days, if one shield is banned, just go play the other one. They haven't opted to bring it in round number 1. We do see Citizen opting to bring the Deimos once again. We see him mainlining this operator most days. 4 roam clears and intel onto the bomb site. We've seen how powerful Deimos can be in a 1vx situation against the defense. When you're that lone survivor remaining and you've got nowhere to go because you're being death marked, makes clinching rounds very easy. But here comes Yaga sneaking up the main stairs.
And he finds 1 kill on the Spoit. immediately retreats. He's got the prize that he wants, and a small smile spreads across his face. Yaga dies to Kino, who was watching those kill holes from above. Longtime teammates and former teammates, actually, on M80. Kino being, as you could say, the last man standing. Flashes go in, Kino looking for more. Hyper with 1 kill, Kino a second, and now he'll assume the position to get the plant. Gomez and Diaz last 2 remaining, and Diaz immediately laying down some heat. Hyper and Citizen are gone. Kino's trapped in the corner. Cameraman on 4 HP. It's all up to Gomez to save things, but he'll look the wrong direction. One over towards Moto, and Kino swings around. It was very, very close, but M80 bails themselves out in that first round.
We're going to have to double check when we get back into live gameplay. I'm pretty sure that was either 3 or 4 for Kino on the round and facilitating the plant at the end as well. Kino trying to become the one-man army that puts an end to Oxygen's stage and year as a whole. As they obviously did not qualify for the Manchester Major, they have not accrued enough 6 invitational points to be within reaching distance if they don't qualify for Montreal either. So there's a lot on the line here for Oxygen in terms of being able to prolong their competitive dreams. Kino being able to take the round into his control and even give us a nice little celebration in the face cam to wrap it up. And Oxygen, while they did play quite static and while they did play quite safe until Yaga went for that flank up the main stairs, a lot of contingent falling inside of Church and inside of Blue, and that really was where the focus of the flood was for M80. Not a whole lot of focus or attention paid to Kitchen Hatch or the kitchen floorboards or Armory as a whole. Very much a Church and Blue focused take, and M80 able to isolate the position they needed behind Black Box to get the plant down. Now for Oxygen, they're not going to run it back downstairs in the basement. Instead, they're going to find some traction on gym and bedroom now.
So when we talked about those bomb sites back in round number 1, this tends to be one of the best bomb sites for the defenders, and it's really because the application for attackers is tough. We see a lot of teams spread out over towards cache and CCTV, which is where the reinforcements, 4 reinforcements in fact, by OXG have been laid out. There's also a deployable shield. You can barricade yourself inside of cache. And if you use some of that denial that's present, Kite Electric Claws, Bandit Batteries, Mute Jammers, etc., of which there's 2 on the board. There's Mute Jammers and Bandit Batteries in Yaga and Newers' hands. It can take quite a lot of effort just to clear out an avenue to the bomb site. Because keep in mind, you've still got more work to be done after that. The problem for this bomb site for defenders is that once you lose control of construction, unless you have a distinct numbers advantage, you are basically sitting in your own tomb. There's not many places for you to go. Oh, first pick usually tends to be important in every single round, but especially so here. Cameraman actually sees the shadows. This is why, kids, remember, keep your shadows on. Gomez gets the first kill, though, on the Citizen. That's the Deimos down, and that is a huge first pick for OXG.
You see the triple hard breach coming out for M80, maybe anticipating that the interior hold for a cache extension was going to be brought by Oxygen, but instead it's the exterior. You see these top red walls are all soft. They had a deployable shield that was being manned from the top of red stairs. It's really wasted a lot of time. And Gomez able to get the opener onto Citizen means that defenders on the bomb site will be safe from any death mark trackers later on in the round. Look at the lineup as well for Oxygen's defense. The Ela mines, Goo mines, castle barricades, just about everything being brought by Oxygen to completely slow down the progress for M80, and a successful bandit trick nonetheless from Yaga as well against the jacuzzi wall means that Oxygen are doing a wonderful job at slowing down M80 and making this a trudge to the top floor of Clubhouse.
It's one of those oppressive ops. And if you're worried about where these defenders are sitting, your best tool from the attackers is as good as gone. 3 hard breachers for M80 is a bit odd, but it once again goes back to the juggling that you tend to see with utility on this bomb site. I think they were worried about OXG being a bit too entrenched over on cache side. And now the struggle for M80 to get into the building. Assembled out on the balcony, looking towards the bomb chassis, both inside of gym and bedroom. A council barricade that you see over towards Jacuzzi Wall will assist these defenders, but Yaga botches the nitro cell, botches the gunfight too. Diffuser going down. Kino with 4 kills to his name will have to try again, as there's cameraman to cover with that C4. It does not work out. Mayhem as now all of M80 finding themselves on the wrong side of the engagement. Hyper drops for the diffuser, but OXG wins it on time. And frankly, that really does boil down to Cameraman. If he gets that nitro cell as it's tossed out, then Kino doesn't need to bail off of that position. Diffuser goes down, and M80 is in full control. Instead, Kino has to abort the plant, move elsewhere. Diffuser ends up going down as he's followed up on by OXG, and that's the round favoring the defenders.
Yeah, a lot of attention paid for M80's clear on the far side towards Cash and CCTV, but at the end, their execute really boils down to once they lose the Jacuzzi wall due to the bandit trick, we just gotta keep vaulting in gym window. Everybody, keep flying in gym window. It'll work one day, promise. Unfortunately, the diffuser, after Kino recovered from the nitro cell being launched in his direction, that, as you said, Parker Cameraman couldn't catch out of midair, he then died, and the momentum took the diffuser down the hatch into the pool table, which pretty much sealed the round at that point. And I think for Oxygen, again, another one of these rounds where they're able to waste a lot of the clock for M80, making the execute come out into the dire seconds. We saw it be successful in the flood into church for M80 in round number 1. This time around, still lots of traps and lots of C4s laying in wait for M80's approach in the hands of Oxygen. So it meant that, again, still lots of utility to try and overcome inside of the bomb site that M80 just did not have the tools to deal with. And that gets them a successful defense on the board, gym bedroom, and instead of heading back downstairs, we're going to keep the rotation moving. Head over to CCTV and Cash. And once again, see the return of at least double stacking on the hard breach, Cameraman onto the Maverick, and Hyper onto the Thermite.
This is a map that you almost always need a hard breacher to deal with these issues. We've entered this odd era of Rainbow Six where if you go back 6, 7, 8 years ago, or even longer, frankly, and you said, yeah, you know, pro teams are pulling off full executes without a hard breacher, you'd look at the person saying that as if they had 4 heads. But it really is entirely possible. You know, there was a period of time where the DMRs and Glaz in particular allowed certain bomb sites to be tackled without hard breach. But now you can bring no hard breacher and no secondary can opener to Rob and still be able to take map control because you have these nuisance ops, because you have lots of soft destruction. And I think a big component of it too, not just the map reworks, but Ubisoft scaling back the amount of bulletproof devices. It used to be a requirement that operators like Zofia, Ash, etc., and grenades were needed in abundance. We're well past those days. So you can bring soft destruction, you can deal with kill lines, you can deal with sight lines, you can deal with soft destruction onto walls. You don't necessarily need the hard breach. I mean, look at this right here. Can openers are being used, but there's 2 garage walls that can be opened up by breaches. Now, they're set up by OXG so that M80 doesn't want to open them, but it's still entirely possible.
Nitro Cell goes soaring from Gomez from inside of Rafters, and the Azami band coming out from Oxygen themselves is going to make playing inside of Rafters quite difficult, but Gomez says he'll take the fight heads up. He'll vault down an Assassin's Creed onto Hyper. Kino will immediately trade it out, and the motion detector giving away his position behind the black box, but that is Rafters surrendered now. And Oxygen having to pivot from inside of the bomb site. They lost a lot of their control downstairs thanks to the soft destruction from the Rotero drones as well. Castle barricades were implemented in Lounge to try and prolong some bottom hold, but Citizen is now manually covering that after the barricades have been ripped away as well. The smokes come out, clearing away the cameras. Spoit as well will pick up Newers, so it means that a man advantage established. It's going to be a flood in the dying moments of the round yet again, but M80 seem to be well poised to put this plant down.
That's top red control that OXG has that will be so pivotal. Ditto Yaga's position, and it's Hat and Yaga both from those 2 spots to strike and winnow down these numbers. Spoit wanting the engagement over towards red, and it's Citizen miles away from the objective. On that lurk roll, on that flank roll, but nowhere ultimately in the cut and thrust. Still finds 2 kills, and on 0-0-0, he will attempt the plant, but give Hat no satisfaction as Citizen bails off the diffuser, but the timer still wins it for OXG. I don't know what OXG was thinking there. Maybe they got a little bit cocky trying to get the final kill, but Citizen had no right drawing that into a 1v1. That was a round that OXG were in quite good spirits for most of. 3 rounds into the matchup, by the way, and M80's now had to call their timeout. That is usually not a good sign.
Well, at least on our graphic, it's not even attack. It's attack. And
Oh.
you and I have been here before, brother.
Oh no.
It is at the conclusion of an M80 round loss. All right, we're being informed that it is a quick audio problem, so we're not returning to the days
Free
of
me from this
past.
prison. Rob, release me.
No, we're trapped in here all day and all night, brother. Well, looks like we're going to get back underway any minute now, and I think right now for M80, whether or not they're having the opportunity to speak to one another during this technical pause, this brief break in the action as we do get back underway nice and swiftly, no lengthy pauses yet. I think for M80, again, speeding up their executes might do them a better service in terms of having redundancy on the clock. There's a lot of these executes now that are hinging on pretty near perfect plays. Coming out like we saw from the Church Flood, where you're going to see Kino fly in with the diffuser and pick up 2 kills, put the bomb down, and get another one after. That's a lot to ask of one individual to be able to carry you through the round, and it's because the clock is being pushed so near to the brink. You can see Citizen as well having to scramble up the rafters and nearly claw the round back to a salvageable position. But again, not enough time on the board to be able to put it into a competitive situation. Has to pull off the diffuser into the overtime just to save the KD. I think right now for M80, they are progressing quite well throughout the map. They aren't facing a lot of resistance on a roam. Map control is being offered freely by Oxygen, but M80 are still taking their sweet time acquiring that map control that is otherwise free. Although, as I say that, OXG have completely swapped the script. Now we have a full extension on the roam with Yaga on the Vigil. Sans the Boss G. He's got the K1A this time around. But much more extension being brought by Oxygen to control and continue to slow down M80's advances.
It's assessing how this attack is going to go now for M80. OXG has really liked Skopos an awful lot. Keep one drone up by the bathroom, inside of that shower, and keep another down near the bomb site. Make them waste utility. If you encounter the deactivated Skopos unit somewhere around, you can just melee it and take away the visibility, same as with a bulletproof camera. Spoit gets the lead-off pick, by the way, and no more Skopos, so I guess we don't need to talk about it. Very first pick for M80 is very good, though. Kino has been sensational so far this game. 2 really good first rounds, and the only reason why that second round wasn't won by M80 was no fault of Kino's. If he can keep up this strong play, M80 will be in great shape because it is very rare that both Spoit and Citizen have an off day. Spoit, another kill in this round alone, and could have had another too. That was the Vigil of Yaga softened up in Garage. Rob, we have over a minute to go, and there's only 2 players left on OXG.
Only 2 players left, and one of them will be hunted down by Citizen's Death Mark. It's Newers at the base of the main stairs. Now turning his attention back towards blue, as he will see the icon of the Deimos up above, but it won't be as frequently updated as Citizen's Intel will be. And with the roof starting to collapse above Newers, there's a lot of pressure to try and get active and try and pull the man count back within reach. Nitrocell goes off, and it only does a hair of damage onto Kino. Looking up to the floorboards, he finds the headshot onto Hyper and descends backwards into Church. Goyo canisters as well, strewn across the bomb site, which means time delay once again can be the great enemy of M80. They have the 4v2, but 2 attackers are severely injured in previous engagements, so on low HP and the opportunity to detonate these Vulcan canisters, this could be devastating for M80 after having such a huge advantage.
It's the same Valkyrie that's just being toyed with when it comes to these death marks. Diaz with one on Despoit, the numbers get ever closer. Diaz might be able to save this. Cameraman looking for a burst in over towards escape tunnel. Diffuser going down by Kino as Cameraman needs to do sufficient coverage. He's lined up in the hallway. Newers will wait for one of the heads to pop up. Cameraman does not make the same mistake twice. Coverage fell short on round number 2. This time, he gets it done. M80 win the round, and it was a scramble there at the end. I don't know if Diaz just went undroned or not, but they allowed him to exist. Over by dummies, over by cases, holding dirt tunnel, holding blue. The real star of this round, though, is Spoit, and you'll see some of these moments on your screen. Spoit cleaning up not just 2 players, but also doing a serious amount of damage to a third. He blew the round wide open. we seem to have caught at least 2 of those OXG players. Like they had no idea that the ace was going to be in that position. With that impressive round, Spoit is still negative, by the way, in terms of his kill differential, so there's more work to be done for Spoit to climb those standings. Right now, M80 relatively even scores across the board. As for OXG, everybody's kind of pulling their weight. Same system that you see for M80, where every single player is very active and very engaged, and who is going to take point, who is going to roam for this OXG squad does tend to vary, depending on what bomb site is played. For the second time, we will see OXG defend upstairs on Gym Bedroom. I mentioned it right as the previous round ended, but M80 lost Citizen very early on. They lost the Deimos. They lost the paralysis that comes with that nuisance operator. And then the next step for M80, despite bringing 3 hard breachers, as they are doing yet again, they had issues cracking open construction, exerting influence on that position, and also controlling Jacuzzi. Jacuzzi was actually held by Yaga until the very final moments of that round. I wonder if we're going to see a change from M80. Will they invest more heavily in that side of the map instead of focusing solely on cash and CCTV before moving over to that bedroom and weight room balcony?
You see the alteration in the philosophy of how to play the round in the previous one from Oxygen, trying to expand their reach and instead really getting picked apart on the roam. Lots of members falling away from the bomb site, trying to leverage some control elsewhere. But unfortunately for Oxygen, M80 seeing through that, and specifically Spoit taking full advantage. Now we see a return to the norm for Oxygen, running back this exterior hold to CCTV and cash on their extension from the Gym and Bedroom bomb site. As said, Yaga was able to successfully bandit trick the Jacuzzi wall the previous time of asking. We'll see if he can return to form. He's got a bandit battery in his hand right now on the opposite side. You can see once again, deployable shield placed at the top of the red stairs, but everyone for Oxygen has vacated the position, waiting to try and play off of this Jacuzzi wall, play off the hold inside of the bomb site, inside of logistics as well, and make M80 once again try to funnel their way through Gym window. That was their coffin. They just kept vaulting into their grave. And M80 are going to have to find a little more purchase from inside of construction, like we talked about, Parker, and they're going to have to deal with Yaga on this Jacuzzi wall.
It's the exact same spot he was in before. That castle barricade will sit there, and you'll need to eat up some of the attacker's utility to get that open. Yaga can sit pretty safely in that spot. It was actually Yaga who destroyed it last time when the execute came through the gym room window. And the reason for that is because if you're an attacker and you jump in through that window, well, you can plant with ease as long as there's a castle barricade. Because the castle barricade doesn't just keep attackers out, it can also keep defenders in. And with Yaga in that spot, it kept him boxed in on Jacuzzi. If you're M80, you want to ensure that stays closed for as long as humanly possible. M80 is spread out this time. They haven't lost Citizen early. Spoit is still upright too. Over towards Logi, that's where the first engagement will happen. Kino takes out Gomez, all the while Hyper dies elsewhere. Same with Diaz. And now a run. Up the main stairs. Hat, terrific play on that Logi hatch. Down goes Citizen. Newers is traded out on that spot over towards bathroom. It's all up to cameraman. Spoit is punished by Hat. And it's a big round from Hat, who looks like he has a Christmas tree set up ready. But the celebration, just as the Christmas tree, will come a bit early. Hat with 3 kills. OXG win the round, and for the second time in a row, they win the Gym Bedroom bomb site.
Again, for M80 on these attacking rounds, unable to contend with Yaga, like you said, Parker, sitting behind a castle barricade, the bandit trick. This is something as old as the map itself, and yet unable to overcome the obstacles in front of them. The pivot for M80 being called was, instead of everyone vaulting to their immediate demise to the gym window, we're going to flood to our immediate demise inside of logistics. Cameraman was actually successful at vaulting inside of gym window, and viewers even calling out the time on the board and the availability for cameraman to have effect on the round was severely hampered by the fact that the diffuser was surrendered inside of logistics. So while cameraman was able to get into the bomb site, man carrying the diffuser, most often Kino, and really everyone who stepped foot into logistics, got laid to waste, and there wasn't much opportunity for cameraman to save it, much like we saw from Citizen attempting to save the dire throws of the previous CC cash attack. But but with no time remaining, M80 really stalling out in these last minutes of the rounds, and unfortunately for them, that now puts them on the precipice of losing the first half. This is the attacking side of Clubhouse, and Oxygen are no slouches at playing Clubhouse, just as everyone should be well adapted to doing so. We're going to see M80 now in their final attacking round return their focus to CCTV and Catch. And again, Rafters should be a primary focus. Because of the Azami ban, they're just going to have to be wary of Gomez deciding to take the fight to them and flying off the Rafter balcony.
You don't have the Capitao to deal with it. You lack direct utility other than maybe nades combined with the bees from Spoid's Grim. M80 have really favored their hard destruction, Rob. There has been no shortage of it across the board. This time, both Ace and a Thermite to tackle this bomb site. Spoid will get the lead-off pick. First picks have been relatively even between these teams, but as of the last portion of this half, it's been M80 able to strike first, albeit in a lot of instances, it's been traded off. It was Spoit trying to bait out one play as Citizen holds this angle, waiting for a cross on the Nook, walking up. Newers is just below him. Are they aware? Newers loses the engagement. He seemed to know it, but slow rate of fire does him wrong. Citizen softening up the dead body. Just a nice little grudge match between the teams. OXG lose yet another player, and M80's advantage is by 1 with half the round to go.
While Citizen was preoccupied letting Newers know that the flank was well read, or at least reacted to timely, they lost a member of their roster. Kino has been felled on the Ace, so we now see the redundancy of that hard breach that you talked about, Parker, coming into play. EMP's onto the construction wall as Hyper will detonate it with an exothermic charge. Spoit still carrying 3 Grim Bees in the back pocket to be able to displace any anchors attempting to play from inside of Cash, but they have missed Yaga, playing on the Cash door right up against the breach. Could get aggressive and level the man count in an instant. The Grim Bees opting not to be shot in just yet from Spoit. Now he will, bouncing them into the middle of Cash, being caught by the Wamai Magnets, and Yaga has the opportunity to play the most pivotal position. With the Rafters still controlled by the defense of Oxygen, all the utility starts flooding into the Wamai Magnets, but everyone for Oxygen still holding their ground.
Down goes Cameraman. What an impressive swing by Yaga. He could have had more than that. He had to reload. Undone by the small mag size of the SMG-11. Nitrocell will now go out from Gomez. It does not connect. Diaz looking for a play. Wait, what? A Nitrocell? Why did it seem to detonate so belatedly? It got both players, though. And OXG takes the first half 4-2. Did my eyes deceive me, Rob?
I think so. I think that was Nitro down and then MPX for the final kill. We'll see on the replays. But I will say again for M80, giving me some horrible PTSD flashbacks to last night, in which there was much discussion on social media about the fact that CL4L were extremely negative on the entry. They had a lot of entry deaths, and I think I noted it was 6 of 7 rounds consecutively that C9 Beast Coast had a 5v3 advantage and lost the round. And we see yet again now for M80, a 5v3 advantage. Granted, very momentary, as Kino was traded out almost instantly after the teabag session on main stairs. But still a 4v3 advantage to be carried into the execute that is again surrendered. We even saw it in the 5v2 that M80 had, collapsing onto the Church and Arsenal bomb site the second time around. It gets brought back to a 2v2, then a 2v1. It's a lot of man advantages for M80 on the attacking side that seem to go by the wayside in a hurry. Oxygen able to survive some tricky circumstances and able to pick up 4 defenses, now transitioning onto the attack. And we see an operator that was absent for the entirety of the first half. M80 never once opting to bring the blitz. Yaga, at the first time of asking, immediately rips it out.
I was waiting when the shields would show up. Monty ban obviously kind of limits you, but a lack of blitz is a bit odd. Lack of clash on the side of the defenders as well. Citizen's been having a rough go of it. He's been isolated very effectively by Oxygen through all 7 rounds of play now, and There have been at least 3 rounds that I can think of where Citizen's impact has been quite negligible. That's not great for M80. Again, Citizen does play those disconnected lurk flank roles where he's not going to be the primary entry for this M80 team. So that means that he's going to be in a lot of very high danger situations. And I think there's criticisms that can be leveled by other teams towards the way that Citizen plays. And I mean, if you follow social media, you'll see it from time to time. But on mute? I mean, on Clubhouse? Can't help but think that those 2 rounds, losing Deimos early when it was Citizen on attack and now losing mute, M80 wishes they could have those back.
I think as well, one of the more interesting positions that I'm not sure where Citizen was when he died. We saw Gomez. We swapped to his POV as soon as we saw the kill pop up in the feed. And Gomez was at the base of main stairs, all the way in the basement, looking into presumably the bomb site, or at least the main hallway, and running back up the main stairs. So while there was much extension towards the blue stairwell for M80's defense, seemingly a gap found by Gomez to acquire the opener, and now Cameraman tries to go 1v1 against the blitz around the corner. Yaga makes him pay for the mistake and the aggression being punished repeatedly here by Oxygen up against M80, and now a 5v3 advantage that was quite common for the M80 side of the attack, now sustained by Oxygen on their attacks, trying to cordon off the defense, circle around the objective, and choke out the remaining anchors.
We've got tools for the final 30 seconds, that's for sure. Hold on a second. Where is Newers, where he's able to get a knife off? Not just a knife off, but another kill. A perplexing finish that really does kind of defy words at this point. Oxygen's lead will stretch. That was a tech pause earlier that had been called by M80, so that means that there's still a tactical timeout. And if you're going to use it, I imagine it's now, unless we get another conveniently timed tech pause. We won't. M80 will use their timeout at this point and settle things down, and I think this is where you risk letting the game run away from you. It's one thing to allow the defenders to win Clubhouse 4-2. This is historically one of the more friendly maps to defenders. Doesn't matter what meta we're in. Doesn't matter what operators are played. Doesn't matter what teams we see. Clubhouse being defender-sided is a tale as old as time. But losing your very first defense, as we just saw M80 do, and not just lose it, but completely fumble it to the point where it was a flawless victory for OXG, is going to set off some alarm bells. So they'll use their timeout. Rob, what stood out to you? As a former Canadian national professional player, use your expertise here, Rob, to tell me what you saw in the previous round.
Fair. Listen, like I said, a big extension towards blue stairs and Cameraman isolated inside of dirt on the Maestro, trying to go for the 1v1 on the blitz. I don't think you need to be a former player of any level to understand that that's probably not your best course of action. But I think as well for Oxygen, just continuously being able to pull themselves an opening pick here and there on the attack is going to give them a lot of momentum. And in the previous round, again, I'm so curious how in the hell Gomez made it to the bottom of main stairs and was able to get the opener on to Citizen for free, never punished, and they're really, from what we saw from the silhouettes, wasn't much of a reaction from M80 either. The late rounds on the attacking side for M80 causing a lot of concern, and yet Oxygen in a similar position at the midway point were able to clinch up and be able to secure the flawless victory on the attack. That gives me a lot of concern about M80's ability to fight back on this defensive side. They're going to forego heading to the basement at the conclusion of the attack timeout. They're going to head to gym and bedroom, 1 round away from being put onto match point on their own map pick. Should be noted, this is M80's pick. They decided out of the maps that were available to first pick this to bring against Oxygen. We're now making them regret that decision very quickly.
So a very different look for Oxygen in regards to what they bring versus what M80 brought. And M80 will instead change things up too. Staple ops for this particular bomb site, some form of anti-gadget denial, which falls on the shoulders of a mute here, not a bandit, so there will be no active tricking on the jacuzzi wall. The castle is not a requirement for gym bedroom, but sure makes defending this bomb site a hell of a lot easier, especially that gym portion of the map. Very similar single panel reinforcement that we see from all teams now leading into the bathroom, as Newers is going to wait for the call. Doesn't appear from the silhouettes that there's somebody actively in the bathroom. But he will continue to fish for a kill, and ultimately Newers will come up empty-handed. He can't keep farting around in that particular spot, Rob. He has to go back onto drone.
Well, most notably, Oxygen has been able to accomplish what M80 could not, which was open jacuzzi wall, which it shouldn't sound like the biggest of tasks. It shouldn't sound like a monumental accomplishment, and yet in this series, it turns out to be M80 having some stark difficulties in accomplishing opening this jacuzzi wall and making attacking this bomb site quite the nightmare of a flood into crossfires. Now, vertical pressure being applied from below. Yaga gets underneath on the Zofia. Second Selmer, the third one now expended by Newers. As you can see, the coalescence of attackers for Oxygen outside the jacuzzi balcony. Now Spoy refills the position inside of bathroom, drops Hat on a swing towards jacuzzi, but now Gomez has joined Yaga down below. And this could be a pinch up the main stairs and through the jacuzzi balcony breach, an opportunity to completely decimate this side of the hold.
Boy, the man of the hour will stand, and he misses the engagement, but Kino has the follow-up. Numbers for OXG go in the toilet. Gomez down to Diaz dead. Newers the only one standing, and it seems like whatever ailed M80 was fixed by that timeout. Will it hold? That's the real question. As Newers gets one impactless exit kill, and they will sick the dogs on him. Newers and Citizen, by the way, have been typing at each other through most of this game. It just hasn't really been visible on your screen. Newers knows it's over, so he'll just stand back and buy time. Citizen didn't give the free kill when he was on attack, and Newers will not return the favor now that he has the same opportunity. Instead, it'll be M80 winning on time, and they go 1 for 1, or rather 1 and 1 to start this second half. That's the victory that you need to keep your head in this game. But I mean, obviously, there's still some troubling signs here from M80. If OXG can win the next round, they will move on to match point. They'll be an excellent spot to close out this map, but it all depends what bomb site they want to go to, because you think you know where it would be, but 3 bomb sites open, they can go anywhere.
They opt to go to CCTV Cache, avoiding the basement yet again. It's probably their next destination, unless we see a bar come out, which I'm personally a fan of, but I know many teams and many people out there are not a fan of holding that bomb site down. Again, for M80, being able to apply pressure through that jacuzzi breach, even though it was opened up, still afforded the opportunity via the utility of Spoit's Warden and also an M590 in the hands of Diaz, in the hands of Kino, to be able to continuously swing the breach out toward jacuzzi. And there was an attempted pinch. There were 2 attackers stacking on jacuzzi balcony, trying to push their way into the short hallway, as well timing it with the push up the main stairs and flood into logistics. Quite the sound idea on paper, but unfortunately the execution was very disjointed. You had Gomez, who was downed inside a jacuzzi before the approach up main stairs was even attempted by Newers, and at that point as well, the swings had already transpired onto the jacuzzi balcony, completely disrupting the flow for Oxygen's attack. So really getting disjointed and segmented off there. M80 able to isolate a lot of 1v1s, and if we know anything about M80, we know that they can win a lot of 1v1s if you're going to give them the opportunity. So Oxygen, like you said, still in the precipice of match point, but M80 with a very strong response. And I am also very curious to see how the baiting allegation competition between Citizen and Newers continues on. We've seen Citizen already get involved, not only in chat, but in game, with some response to the attempted flank from Newers on main stairs. I think it just adds a little bit more spice to a game that already has plenty on the line.
These teams do not like each other one bit. And we've talked about rivalries in the North America League. It is arguably very challenging to have a rivalry with how few games these teams ultimately play. But they do scrim, they do know each other, and they have history from other teams as well. So that bad blood can easily carry over. Yaga's the first casualty, and it comes decently early. There was over half of the round still to go when he was removed from action. That's really something, isn't it, huh?
I've been trying not to comment on it, and it's bad. It's just outright bad. Diaz will at least get one onto Hyper in response to the flood of kills entering the feed at the hands of M80 defenders, and Hat, he had a time trying to open CC platform wall. He's now going to have to readjust as rafters are vacated, but without platform wall opened up, you're not going to be able to apply a whole lot of pressure into the bomb site from the exterior as he wanders his way into the rafters, waiting for the rest of the team to join him. He seems to be on a solo mission. Diaz will rejoin, but they've left the diffuser down in the basic garage. It seems like it's just going to be a flood for kills and a team deathmatch affair for Oxygen to attempt to put themselves on a match point.
At this point, that's what you got to do, right? When you're down in numbers and there's very limited time left, you have to go for the engagement. Citizen knows the mission. He understands it quite well. He rebuffs them, but another opportunity emerges for Diaz, who now plays a game of chicken around this chassis. It's all cameraman. Suddenly, a flurry of kills favoring Oxygen. Raw, the Nitro Cell will come out from over towards construction. Cameraman catches Gomez mid-step, and now with very limited time remaining, it's Diaz and Cameraman in a 1v1, and Cameraman wins it. That really could have been the match. Cameraman will save it for M80. He's had pronounced struggles on this team and has been scrutinized heavily, but there's no denying that he is cool under pressure, and with experience like that, it'll help him out in those clutch engagements. OXG turned the tide on that round, and all they had to do was find the final target, and Cameraman says, good luck. Timeout called by OXG, as we are getting very, very close to needing every single round of this matchup.
Well, we've seen a clubhouse come out from M80 before that required quite the heroic effort. That was back in the playoffs, where M80 unfortunately lost out and found themselves here in the last chance qualifier. It was even so many impressive clutch plays that it prompted some profanity to escape the lips of our good friend, Lynx, during that match. And I think as well for M80, it's not the return to form that you would like. You wouldn't like your rounds to be salvaged by individual clutch potentials, some superhuman efforts being made, but it's the LCQ. It's do or die. Doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to work for now. That flood from Oxygen initially gets disrupted and then all of a sudden overpowers from the construction side. Gomez laying waste to everybody on the entry. It looked impossible, and then it looked impossible to lose in a flash of a second. And all of a sudden, Oxygen, they were in the driver's seat. Cameraman had to pull it back from the brink of despair. And now they head back downstairs to the basement, where Oxygen were successful the previous time around with the Blitz. And barring any swap-offs later on in the next 20 seconds, it looks like Yaga, he's going to run that one back. Very different operator lineup coming around. Actually, pretty similar operator composition of the defense coming out for M80. We see the return of the Maestro for Cameraman. We'll see if he can play against the Blitz and really anyone inside of Dirt with a little more help and maybe a little bit more utility.
Shield being brought again. These early deaths for OXG have been a big issue through much of this map, in the sense that it just leaves you in a position where your strategy has to immediately adapt. Yes, as you pointed out in the matchup yesterday, in the matchup yesterday involving, I literally always forget their name because I want to say something completely different, but I'm never able to. CL4L, by the way. They were terrible on entry, as you spoke of. And yet, it didn't really matter because Cloud9 Beast Coast just lost it through the mid-round. While we always like to reference that statistic, that at one point reached 80%, which is that if you can strike first, you have an 80% of all rounds won by the team that draws first blood. It's really not as strong as it used to be. It's obviously very critical, but it really depends on when the kill comes in, what bomb site is it, and which operator are you losing. For M80, they lost Citizen on integral ops twice, and they lost the rounds because of it. And it's very hard to argue that Citizen was not, or Citizen's death, rather, was not a huge factor. It obviously was. As for OXG, they keep losing bodies, and yet they still win the rounds because you've got players who can adapt very quickly. There's a reason why you sought out guys like Gomez and Diaz, because of their history of play together, and Yaga, who knows their system quite well too. And that's because whether this team has reached its potential this stage or not, you can't deny that they aren't good at making adaptations. So if you can pivot very quickly, the first death doesn't really matter all that much. Who will strike first here? Because nobody's died and there's just a little bit over a minute to go.
can see Vulcan canisters now positioned inside of dirt to again try and prolong this opening engagement, which should be Yaga on the blitz springing into life, but there goes Cameraman again, just trying to take the 1v1. Does have the assist from the fire that I asked about as we began this round, but now the fire, it will dissipate. It means that Yaga is point blank up against the Maestro once again. Impact doing very little damage to the backside, and this will continue to prompt Cameraman to back off and play this a little bit safer, attempting to utilize a little bit of teamwork, ripping out the second impact. It goes nowhere near. The blind comes out, and the ADS all the same. Yaga able to pick up Cameraman for the opener. Grimby's in towards the AK racks as well, establishing the position of Citizen, poised to try be the next obstacle that Yaga needs to overcome. And it's an ADS and a couple taps to once again set up the 5v3 advantage. Gomez dropping Hyper, but the flood into the bomb site is about to be overwhelming as Kino meets his demise. The swing at a church door is unsuccessful, and Oxygen once again established dominance attacking the basement, and they put themselves on a match point.
M80 converted not just the immediate round after their timeout, Rob, but the round after it as well, and they looked quite good while doing it. Now, obviously, you can't throw all of that credit onto the timeout. Sometimes it's just you get a favorable bomb site. Maybe it's flavorable. I've never licked the bomb sites. I don't know if you've tried. But either way, you can let the bomb site do its thing, and maybe you just picked a suboptimal site. Maybe you got countered immediately by operators on the attacking side. Here, after that timeout, OXG looked far more calculated. Number one, they did not forfeit an unnecessary early pick. They were able to walk in on that main floor, take control, split Yaga off towards that dirt tunnel, and keep the focus of not just one, but two players of M80. Also, getting an early pick from OXG was terrific. Yaga held his own in that spot. And if he's going to be in those same high-risk situations that a lot of other entries can be, he's going to do it on an op that is maybe a little bit more favorable with those engagements, which happens to be the Blitz. If OXG can do exactly what M80 just did, which is carry that momentum and carry that confidence onward, then they will be in a much stronger spot than they were just a couple rounds ago. They have their work cut out for them, though, because they're going to be on attack here on Clubhouse. That said, they've already won 2 rounds, and with the scoreline being what it is, M80 have a long way to go for them to exit this matchup in a favorable direction. This is M80's map. I would like everybody to know, if you're not noticing in the top right-hand corner of your screen, this is dreadfully bad for M80. This is not what should be happening one bit. And maybe, just maybe, the 2 former members of this team, both of whom are our analysts, and maybe they have a little bit of a better understanding about how this is going to go, as they both picked OXG in a 2-0.
Yeah, we came in and said it was surprising. You see the exterior breach now opened up into CCTV. The saving grace for M80 here on the defensive side is that you were victorious on both top 4 bomb sites in consecutive rounds, in Gym Bedroom and CCTV Cache. The latter requiring a few more heroics from Cameraman than maybe you'd like to feel easy about, but here comes the Blitz charging down the red hallway again. The ADS coming out, but Spoit on the ward and able to shut down Yaga's reign of terror on the ADSing shield. Cameraman as well tags in from the top of red stairs to continue to pick apart Oxygen's attacking contingent, pushing their way into CC. Ash as well, still vacated for the time being, but top red doesn't look like Spoit wants to leave this deployable shield anytime soon. It's 3 remaining attackers for Oxygen to continue to try and push Spoit out of this power position.
Yeah, with that deployable shield, this is going to be really troubling. The only real way that they have to take it out is that Selma, the single Selma in hands of Gomez, and I don't know if that's where he's going to want to use it. Spoit worried about somebody playing down below, so he'll actually get off of that position entirely. Now it's Gomez to walk closer to the bomb site. There's a bulletproof camera. This engagement with Gomez will really decide the round. He hits a goo mine, he's waiting for a swing, he sees but for a second the head of Kino. Before peeling back, he has to take that thorn out of his foot. Because of all these soft walls, Gomez can just use his ammunition to open things up. Kino's been dropped. That was information that was given over towards Hat, who's in a favorable spot. Citizen goes down as well. It's a 3v3. Though Gomez has been picked back up, now we're back at a 3v3. Hectic times with 30 seconds left. Hyper in this rat position, but they read into him. Gomez sees him for what he is. Could Cameraman be the savior again? No. Had in a 1v2, looking to win this round. 20 seconds remain, and he's got a goo mine in foot. He'll be vulnerable for a second. M80 will give him nothing. Out in the middle of this room, they know exactly where he is on the bulletproof camera, running up. They're trying to kill time from the side of M80. Spoit will be the one who'll take the engagement, and he wins it. 2 rounds so far is all Oxygen can get. We will go all the way after a very impressive, steadfast defense from M80.
It held together, but it felt like it was held together with duct tape for M80. Another 5v3 advantage that starts to get brought back within the realm of possibility for Oxygen. The push into the bomb site, reading the positions of M80 defenders with ease, being able to predict their positions and really get a foothold inside of Master and Jim. It was really just Spoit being able to bounce around from the bathroom hallway and into bathroom specifically. I was able to again keep M80 afloat on the round if it weren't for his heroics. That's at the top of the main stairs as well, peering into Master. It could have been a very different story for an M80 round that started so well yet again. Did say this heading into the previous round that CCTV Cash and Jim Bedroom, both successful defenses for M80. So in round number 12, to send us to overtime on M80's map pick, it now requires a second successful defense of CCTV and Cash. More extension towards the master side this time around from M80's defense. They were very successful at the grace of Hat's inability to successful at holding the far for Oxygen to bring it back within the realm of possibility. Also, you see Citizen slap a mirror window down onto the platform wall just to make life even more difficult for anyone who attempts to breach it. Newers immediately knifes the vision away, and some Selmas come out. The mirror window hasn't been injected to attempt the trick, so that's just going to be platform wall opened up for free. And it's a better start here for Oxygen.
I like the Scopos pick. I like the Mira as well. Changes from M80 that you touched upon are good, and I think they'll work to support some of this OXG pressure that will be applied. A lot of pugilism on the side of OXG. They can just go straight for the punch if they want, and no, that's not just a funny quip because you see the fist icon of the Finca. Walks in, and Citizen gets annihilated down below. Gomez from an unfavorable angle, shot away at from Catwalk. Will now try to flush somebody out of red as there go the nades, and he will assert himself. What is this from OXG? Look at this moxie. Look at this confidence. They walk right in. Diaz has a Thatcher shotgun. That is abnormal as we see it. Spoit with a single kill. He'll have to clutch the round against the 4 remaining from OXG. He's found a second, but Newers will get the final word. With the way these two have been talking in chat, those words are as valuable as gold. OXG snipes M80's map away from them, and they're up 1-0.
A very convincing result there for Oxygen, and on the flip side, a very worrying and unstable presentation for M80 on map number 1. Like you said, Parker, it was their map pick, and yet it drops in regulation nonetheless. The hands of some late round adaptations for Oxygen on the attacking side. The analyst desk, they both took Oxygen to be victorious. They're halfway there. We'll get to see their reactions to map number 1 on the other side of the break.
Scopus 90, Scopus Raptor 90 still.
Right.
Raptor 90 still, Raptor 90 still. Still Raptor, still Raptor.
Raptor, swing Raptor.
Cash.
Kill me cash.
Let's go swing him. Play kill. Dead. Bitch. Dumbass. Dumbass.
Shit, boys.
Come on, boys. Let's fucking go.
That's your shotgun?
Boys.
Oh my gosh. Think of the kids.
Well, 7-5 there. Oxygen giving M80 a bloody nose to start this series. And I mean, honestly, I think that 7-5 scoreline doesn't really tell the story of how much better Oxygen looked in comparison to what we were seeing from M80.
No, I mean, to just highlight their defenses, they were very coordinated. They were working together. Even their utility game, they were using those C4s to their benefit and getting kills, collapsing some of those rounds. I mean, again, this is pretty typical M80 from what we've been seeing. They just look kind of clumsy in some of these situations. A lack of identifying what they want to do or where a situation can be met by and how they can counter it. It kind of just feels like they're just going into this map feeling confident because they have wins on it. But realistically, Oxygen in every single department of just a fundamental sound game, they just look better then.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a situation here where, again, M80, it doesn't look like they're changing much. And this has happened on Bank. This has happened on Labs. But on a map like Clubhouse, again, they are 4-1 on the map, but they haven't really changed much. I mean, look at this blitz play. I mean, questionable play. Start to finish M80 on that. Yeah, I mean, I just think, to put it bluntly, like M80 looks like they just don't have confidence in one another in the way that they're playing and playing off of each other. Every play looks like an individual play, even when there's 5 people on the board. And I think the only reason why the game was so close was because of Oxygen making small little mistakes. I felt like that whole situation was Oxygen's game from the start, slowly shaking off the rust and just getting better and better. And the highlight for me is Oxygen's attacks. Their attacks were so good. The way that everyone was playing off of each other. It's like watching a completely different team than the team that was during the stage. It looks like Oxygen wants to win. Everyone wants to win. They're all putting their pride aside and just focusing on what the objective is, what's the game plan. And I love the utility of the shields, their utility usage, and the aggression that they're bringing to the server, to the game, especially off of that blitz.
And realistically, Clubhouse is a map where it comes down to mistakes. And simply put, M80 made way more mistakes that Oxygen was just capitalizing off of this entire game.
Yeah, I agree completely.
They definitely were, and I mean, I will say sometimes people are like, "Oh, you guys are biased towards Oxygen." You sounded more frustrated.
We roasted Oxygen throughout the entire
I know.
stage.
I'm not saying you are. I was gonna say that you sounded more frustrated talking about M80 than I think I've heard you sound frustrated talking about Oxygen. Like, what is going on? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? And I mean, it's valid. It was a rough game from them. I mean, looking ahead towards Labs, my faith in M80 is not very high. If you can't pull it together on Clubhouse, I don't see how you pull it together on a map like Labs, which in my mind at least is more complicated.
I mean, the reality of this is the fact that when Oxygen played this, they played against Los. And this is when, again, Oxygen just wasn't looking good at a fundamental level. And I think M80 thinks, oh, let's take them to this map because they didn't look strong on it. But M80 isn't good at this map at all. And the serving sample size for one or the other, Oxygen has far less footage. And again, they weren't the team that they currently are now. And just based off how they just recently played Clubhouse, which is a very default map from M80, and their success on it and now losing, this is not a good look for M80. And again, this is exactly why me and Fox said that this map pool does heavily favor Oxygen, especially winning that first map and now finding yourself in Labs. I mean, I can definitely see Oxygen taking this series just based off how well they played in comparison to M80.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Labs, OXG lost it to Los specifically because OXG wasn't playing to their potential. They were playing sloppy. That's just it. M80 lost this map 3 times during the regular stage and playoffs due to them not playing the map fundamentally correct at all. We've highlighted it throughout the stage if you've watched with us. And M80 doesn't know how to play the X Factor operators, the shields, the yings, the glass, wherever it is, it's usually Kino on it. The rest of M80 is not there. They're not behind them. They're not following up. So obviously, we talked about it. Their best chance was going to be on Clubhouse. And we said if it doesn't go that way, then this could be an Oxygen 2-0. And honestly, even if M80 wins this round, the third map doesn't give me any more confidence as an M80 fan. These look like all Oxygen's good maps, at least because M80 fundamentally struggles on the big sporadic maps.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it's a worrying situation. I think if you're sitting in this as an M80 fan, you're kind of, hey, what do we possibly do? And I mean, I think it's a question direct to you guys. What do you do to beat Oxygen when they're looking better than they have all stage for sure?
You have to play tighter. You have to be playing together. You have to be identifying where the problems are, how a solution can be made throughout these rounds. Because what we were seeing is they were letting some of these rounds slip away where they were looking good. Even they had some rounds, it had to get scrappy, even though they were in a man advantage. So it's just a matter of realizing and identifying what needs to happen and what should take priority versus what they've been doing throughout their match on Clubhouse.
Yeah, I think they just need to put their pride aside, realize that, hey, like, it doesn't matter if we don't trust in each other or what's going on, things are shaking. If you don't play together, if you don't play off of each other, you're just going to lose, plain and simple.
Yeah.
You need to rely on each other as a team.
Makes perfect sense to me. Let's see if M80 can pull it off. We're on our way to labs, which means it's time for me to turn you over to a couple of cool cats from Canada. It's Flynn and Intero.
Cool is a very good word to use here, Corbeck, because it is actually very cold outside, Rob. It's like 8 degrees Celsius, which I think is like 40 something for Americans.
40 something, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's very cold. We went from a boiling hot summer to a very cold fall in very quick fashion, just as we went from a 0-0 to a 1-0 in not very quick fashion, but quite impressive fashion. OXG taking M80's map away from them, which means now OXG will go to very fertile ground, which is their own pick of labs. They should, in theory, be able to walk away with this. Will it happen? We don't know, because we probably didn't have OXG taking map 1 off of M80 either. Regardless, operator bans are underway, and we will keep our eyes peeled for any potential weird or odd choices.
Yeah, you really have to take the words from Flax and Fox to heart. There were a lot of mistakes made by M80 on map number 1. That was not a map of Clubhouse that leaves you with the impression that this is a team that should be fighting for a major spot. I think right now for Oxygen, this is a team that has been able to, like Fox said, take advantage of a lot of the errors that were made on that map and really just play fundamentally sound and play much improved from the performance that we saw in the group stage from Oxygen. We see near identical bans, the Dokkaebi instead of the Ying this time, but everything else follows the exact same way on Labs as it did on Clubhouse. So we lose the Azami, we lose the Tugarao. So we still have the Kaid at play. We still have lots of games to be played around hard breaching of walls, but it'll be M80 starting on the defense of OXG's map pick of Labs. Up 1-0 in the series, and it must be said, OXG in fine form at the moment. And we do have a bit of a role swap to begin things, and we'll see if they change things around in repick. But we got a Glaz, a Finka, a Blitz, and a Lion coming out, at least to begin the round. We got a basement defense coming out from M80 to try and repel, much like the Des talked about, a lot of the aggression that Oxygen was bringing to the server that seemed to put M80 on their heels often.
Just going to keep an eye on those up-and-coming operator choices here. Didn't really talk about the numbers, by the way, much. When it comes to the LCQs, this was the first time that we saw Clubhouse in the actual last chance qualifier stages. Chalet and Border have been yet to be played, and with Layer being the decider, we definitely won't see it in this matchup. But will we see it in the other two? Yes, the other two, Wildcard and CL4L, which is a team that does not compete in the North American League. You might not be familiar with them, but if you watched the matchup yesterday against the major defending champs of Cloud9 Beast Coast, then you will know all about them. And you'll also know that major defending champs is a title that C9BC will lose in roughly about a month because they did not qualify for the Montreal Major. A little bit hard to defend your major title when you don't actually make it to the event itself. But when you look at these matchups, we have Wildcard and CL4L next, and then the winner of this game goes up against the winner of Wildcard CL4L, and that game will count for what team goes to Montreal. Earlier today, G2 was the team from Europe to win from the last chance qualifiers, knocking out ENCE in a 2-0 victory just moments before we went live here on this channel. And boy, oh boy, were the LCQs in Europe very messy today, Flynn.
Speaking of messy, we retain the Blitz and the Glaz as we enter in through Animus. Oxygen not attempting to employ any map control on a clear. Kino on the Warden. He can't see through the smoke as the plant is going down, and he's finally able to stop it in its tracks, but 2 kills picked up by Oxygen in response. While the diffuser is on the ground, it is easily recoverable for Oxygen's attacking members as they once again circle around inside of Animus, worried about potential pressure from the hatch above as Kino could relocate. Now the diffuser, recovered by Yaga, immediately gets back out as both the assembly and Animus walls were ripped open in early succession by Oxygen's attack, simply trying to go site direct, get a plant down, but they're still in a good spot to recover from the first failed attempt.
I mean, obviously losing a Legion is never good. They lose Gomez as well. Kino in this spot, tucked into the corner, doing quite a lot of damage. He's got kill holes down below him as well, so there's no shortage of angles for him to keep his eyes peeled on. Worried about somebody from the window. M80 with a numbers advantage. These last two players from OXG will simply brute force their way through, but there's a second line of defense. Citizen will get a single kill before Diaz is reduced to rubble. 10 HP on Diaz's side of things. It's him and Hyper in a 1v1 now. Not a lot of time. I guess you've got roughly enough for the 3 armor to trudge his way towards the site. The TCSG in the hands of Hyper is a tough go of it for Diaz. Bullet pen through the wall. A single bullet. Honestly, if it whizzes past Diaz, it might do enough damage to kill him. Here goes some of that soft destruction. Diaz has an idea as to where this Kaid could be. He'll attempt the plant now. It's halfway there. Red marks are in. Diaz falls off. Hyper exposing himself for a second. Diaz picking the wrong way before Hyper, with 1 second left, finishes the round. And again, a round that was maybe a bit too close for comfort for M80. They win it. But if this is what Labs is going to look like, M80 are going to need to be a little bit more feared, or else this will be a slog for them and their fans.
Yeah, slight alteration to that clear through storage against Kino. If it isn't so staggered, then that's probably lights out on the roam. Citizen as well, tagging in from inside of control was nice, but he then separated from his last remaining teammate of Hyper, which meant it just gave Diaz the opportunity to have 2 separated 1v1s. And he won the first one, and he couldn't win the second one on 10 health and no time on the clock. So M80, off the backs of, once again, some early impressive performances by Kino and Citizen, mean that they garner themselves the first defensive win. We see a tank and assembly defense be victorious for M80. They immediately turn tail to the top floor. We'll go to server and command to try and get on a run on the defensive side. It was Oxygen who really put their mark on Clubhouse in terms of the defensive favor. And we'll get to see if M80 can replicate some of those results early on in map number 2, as it is backs against the wall time for M80, surrendering their own map pick of Clubhouse. Means that from here on out, Oxygen's in the driver's seat, and there's been plenty of moments now for M80 where they've had man advantages, and they've looked like they've been in control, and they have lost that control in a hurry. Oxygen has been scrappy, they've been defiant, they've been rather mechanically impressive so far. Every one of the teams stepping up and having their individual moments. We see Yaga return on the Glass with Hat on the Blitz, so maintaining this role swap on Oxygen, still looking to bring some aggression and some site direct opportunities for Oxygen's attacks.
Watched as the Claymores were picked, by the way, in the previous map, Rob, and I didn't see any real value here. I mean, with both of these teams, you can expect some cheekiness. You can expect them to jump on out. This Lion scan now has caught 3 separate players on the side of M80. Kino's almost dead. Gomez has gone to a Nitro Cell. Kino had thrown, which is why he lost so much HP. Amidst the smoke, Yaga eliminating Hyper. Now looking for yet another. Newers trading out on Kino as Diaz is bleeding out and will need to be retrieved. The Blitz of Hat will assume the position, gunning down Cameraman. Only 2 remain for M80. There's a burst of action. 4 players dying so quickly, Rob. Down goes the Ash of Newers. A Citizen catches her. And now the Blitz. Positioned by the doorway, looking to walk into the bomb site. Citizens had to retreat. He's shoulder to shoulder with Spoit, who's now found his way out towards Catwalk and will rotate in through IT. There's 2 players in terms of mechanics that you want remaining on your side on M80. It's these 2. A peek from the Glass of Citizen, and Hat will try the diffuser. He fails off of it. Yaga tearing strips through these players, but right now the HP on the side of OXG just continues to dwindle. It has to favor M80 at this point. Spoit isolated, trapped from the spot. Diaz dies to Spoit. Yaga eliminates him. It's all up to Citizen as the diffuser will now run away. A shield and a Glass are what await Citizen. Neither of these operators particularly enjoyable to go up against, but together, whoo, boy, that's a real tizzy. Citizen already off to a much better start here on Labs than we saw in Clubhouse, but Yaga will ensure the 3 kills Citizen has, or all he has, at the tail end of that round. A real messy matchup, but it gets done on the side of OXG.
I think OXG feel very comfortable bringing this to a slugfest and a site direct operation where we are foregoing any kind of hard breaching. Really, they saw the rotation made from connector into server. They forego any breach onto IT and let that be a pivot position for Spoit to maybe cause some thorns in the backside. But at the end of the day, still the coalescence of the Glass and the Blitz inside electrical, being able to see through the smoke on the plant coverage the second time around, it's the difference maker for Oxygen. They don't seem all that inclined to be operating with the mentality that they need to clear M80 out of hard hold positions away from the bomb site. They just need to bring operators that will facilitate getting aggressive and in their face as much as possible and be victorious in the ensuing slugfest. Spoit returning with the cap cans once again. We saw a couple of those detonate in the previous round and saw a lot of OXG attackers be low on health, but again, much like Oxygen as a whole in this series through Clubhouse and now through the early rounds of Labs, refusing to drop completely, always hanging around, always hanging on by an inch, and being able to persevere, just as they did there. We see the return now of Yaga onto the Blitz, Newers onto the Ying, the attacking operator band that is the only difference in bands between Clubhouse and Labs. Now we get to see the Ying and the Blitz in tandem. Yeah, Citizen, while the Warden was absent from the majority of the previous round, he's going to get immediately back onto the Warden, try and help him see through the amount of blinding utility that Oxygen can bring.
I mean, Warden was also a byproduct of the meta that we had at the time. We were seeing smokes dominate, so Ubisoft started working on an operator that perfectly countered a smoke-heavy meta, which at the time was Glaz and Ying dominated, if you go far enough back to remember when Warden was added to the game. The problem is that it takes longer for a new operator to be made than for balancing to come into play. So there was such an uproar over Glaz and Ying being strong that they nerfed smokes by the time Warden was unveiled, which means, well, he didn't really have the same prominence and same success upon release than if he'd been put out a season or two before that. It's taken some time for smoke operators to find their way back into the meta, but Warden is now a great pick, and when he had the 1.5 scope, he was everywhere. First kills, by the way, come out to M80. They've knocked Hat down, and they've managed to kill Yaga outright. That's an excellent start with half of the round left.
Seems like it was a nitro cell from underneath via Spoit. Is he still downstairs? And yeah, that's the Blitz taken out of action, and Hat, he'll be successfully revived inside of Electrical. Back to 20 health, but I don't think these drones have established that there are still many roamers for the M80 side at the top of the blue stairs, but Newers able to respond onto the Spoit downstairs. So he makes his descent through the rafter stairwell, being able to, again, apply pressure towards that cargo rotation back into control. That's a powerful position that he's actually having over the rotations inside of the bomb site, and it's forcing cargo hallway to be utilized behind this castle barricade by the remaining defenders of M80 as they evacuate their position topside and all heal back downstairs to the main floor to do battle. Kino, though, picked apart by the R4C of Gomez from up above. Top floor established for Auction on the attack, and the man advantage once again reestablished.
Things looked so terrible about 40 seconds ago for OXG, Rob, and now all of a sudden it's M80. We're on the wrong side of this equation. Diaz has found an opening to get that diffuser down, and now M80 will have to recover. Citizen running straight into harm's way. Ian Cameraman with 2 to give the advantage back in favor of that team with the fluorescent logo. OXG narrowing the numbers. Down goes Citizen. They have a good read on where one of the 2 players from M80 lay, and, well, Cameraman doesn't seem to understand that the roof above him is mostly gone. A puzzling situation that leaves Hyper to tend fort, and he dies to Gomez. OXG doing what needs to be done so far on their map if they want to close this out in quick 2-0 fashion.
Yeah, if I'm the guy putting the bomb down in storage, I'm a little sad about how the last minute transpired, but the final seconds kind of make up for it. Top coverage and Newers in the middle of storage, unable to protect Diaz as he tries to go for the plant. And yeah, here comes Citizen sprinting on in to the middle of storage. Got an attacker above him and an attacker directly in front of him, and yet he's laser focused on Diaz, trying to put the diffuser down. And again, a scramble from Oxygen. They lose the opening pick. They have their hard breacher put to 20 health. They are unaware of 2 defenders at the top of the blue stairs, and they continue to dip and dodge away from M80 and continue to survive in these rounds. Both teams are making critical errors, but it's Oxygen who are continuing to be able to take advantage of the situations that M80 are presenting. That's M80 unsuccessful on the other two bomb sites. Might be a return of form for Labs as a whole from yesterday, where basement was really the only successful defense anyone could have. The three bomb sites really not having that much enjoyable play for the defensive favor. So we see M80 return to the basement to try and level up the score as Oxygen continue to apply the pressure and keep their foot firmly pressed against the gas pedal.
A very enjoyable matchup between these two teams. There's still plenty more to come. 3 matches today. Have you and I only working this one together? Womp womp. I'll be working with Jays Wills, aka Jonah. The next matchup of Wildcard and then CL4L. And you and Jonah will actually be running away with the finals. So I'll get to hear one of the two of you, presumably you, because you tend to do more play-by-play, Rob, calling which of these teams will actually make it. Unfortunately for me, it's just too late. Well, it's past my bedtime, so I'll be tucked in just as Gomez just got tucked in by cameraman. Night-night.
Night-night. There goes the ying.
That's a ying.
Yep.
That's a ying. That's bad.
That's pretty bad. That's the operator that I highlighted again that was absent from Clubhouse because of the bans, and it is, again, one of those crucial execute operators that just absolutely obliterates everyone's ability to see and hear and focus and coordinate, except for Kino, who's now operating on the Warden as opposed to Citizen this time around. You see Spoit able to rotate from the top of the blue stairs, pick up these gridlock track stingers, able to decipher the position of a flank drone as well, but we see Oxygen again, giving very little credence to the operators of M80 who are floating around the top side of the map. This is a basement defense, and Oxygen, once again, even after losing Gomez, they're still solely focused on getting downstairs to the objective primarily and foregoing the rest. As you can see the descent down the Exo stairs for Yaga on the blitz, the main carrying the diffuser, and he immediately gets into the bomb site. He's got purview from Hat on a Maverick outside, and the plant is going down.
9 players still alive with diffuser going down. Yaga manages to pull it off. Hat picking off Citizen. Numbers will equalize now, and Yaga can tuck himself into the corner and smoke off the doorway. He gets torn through by cameraman, who has the angle above. Spoit dies to Diaz. Both of these teams trading blows. The timer will be the bigger issue for M80. Newers with great trigger discipline gets one. Diaz collects the second. And now it's Hyper to stop OXG from getting a third round. It would prevent M80 from winning this first half, and that's exactly what will happen. Diaz, sensational in the post plant. OXG wins 3 rounds on attack on Nighthaven Labs, and M80 are starting to sweat.
It's a 50-50 social projection that we got on our screen there, recapping what the community thought at large. We do, as well, get a tactical timeout, not a technical, a tactical, so the only one available to M80, to be able to slow things down. And I think that is probably the first directive for M80, is trying to establish how to slow Oxygen on their approach to the bomb site, because it has been rapid, and the opening pick seems to not matter time and time again. Oxygen are fine suffering casualties in the opening portions of rounds, so long as that execute is still in place. And we saw that from Yaga. Even though he got picked off from up above in the vending hatch, Diaz was able to relocate from the storage window to the vending window to be able to continue to impact the plant's viability and continue to quell the retake for M80. Now we find ourselves in a position where Oxygen, they're in the driver's seat once again, carrying the momentum, forcing the tactical timeout to return. Sorry, it was Newers that rotated from the storage window to the vending window to have the purview from up above. And I think as well for Oxygen, they just have no desire and no intention of clearing the map. They don't feel they need the top control other than on that storage and control bomb site. They really don't feel like they need to be inside the map for a majority of the round to get the job done. As long as their execute is aggressive and lethal, they are fine letting M80 control 80% of the map. As long as that crucial 20% is in Oxygen's favor and they have the utility and the execute operators to get the plant down, that is their sole focus, and it is working wonders for them. Like you said, Parker, 3 on the bounce now for Oxygen. They have secured a tie at worst case scenario at the side swap. Oxygen flying and operating on all cylinders at full percent right now.
Obviously, a very troubling spot for M80 to be in. M80 struggles have been quite pronounced in a variety of their matchups, but I mean, OXG has really been the story for this region. They were so dreadfully bad through most of this stage, and we use that language because we are not used to them being a bottom feeder team. OXG has found their groove here in the LCQs. Not sure if you would agree, Rob, but I have to feel that the winner of this matchup is the favorite to gain the final spot versus Wildcard and CL4L. Just based on history and just based on the caliber of the players. Though Wildcard has honestly been steadily improving as a team. Hat decides to run past an open electrical window, and boy, oh boy, he gets quite the shock from Kino. An early pick for M80 will seriously help them in their quest to keep this score line close. 2 minutes to go. That's a 5v4 for M80.
Like I said, the opening pick hasn't really done a whole lot of favors for M80, but this time around onto Hat specifically, as he seems to be the primary hard breacher. Kino again. M590, he's just putting his face in an electrical window and laying waste to the Oxygen attackers out on the balcony. Kino wants to do even more damage, but it's a 5v3 that suddenly starts to slip away once again. Cameraman getting aggressive outside in the meeting hallway. There's no electricity onto the right side of this panel, which means that the can openers, as redundancy on the hard breach, will be successful at opening up the connector wall and continuing to quell the aggression from electrical. Suddenly, once again, we see Oxygen at a two-man disadvantage start to claw the round back. The rotation has been late reinforced by M80 from connector into server, but another can opener finds its way onto the wall. Nitro cells being ripped in hand by multiple M80 defenders, and they will get shot out of the air. The can opener is still positioned on the wall, which means even though they lose Hat as the opening death as their primary hard breacher on the ace, the redundancy and the recovery for Oxygen is still well on the way.
I don't like a 4v3 lead on this map either. Things can turn very quickly, as we've seen actually in 2 of the rounds played out so far. M80's going to play as if they're behind, though, with Kino getting very aggressive. He's found every single kill so far for M80. That will continue. Spoit will deny the ace, and Citizen will get the final kill. Look at him. He looks so great. M80 win that round and keep the numbers close. It's only their second so far on defense. With a map like Nighthaven Labs, when we see this map appear, we are so used to it being just a 50-50 map. The numbers have not looked that way so far in North America. If you just ignore the LCQs and focus solely on the actual stage that preceded it, it's quite a defender-sided map. 60% of the rounds won by the defenders, which means the fact that OXG have been able to win 3 rounds is downright bad for M80. Nighthaven Labs in the middle of the pack in terms of play as well. So it's not even like we have a small sample size to go off of here. This is really just OXG playing their map, really liking where they're at. And they burned M80's timeout early. And the presumption is, based on the numbers that we see on Nighthaven Labs, that when the side swap happens, OXG will win more rounds than they will lose. For M80, that means the win condition is to get to 3-3 at this point. If you surrender this round to OXG, that is a very, very daunting climb on that second half. You cannot stumble, because if OXG wins this map, that's it. M80 will not make it to the Montreal Major. OXG will go on to face the winner of CL4L, defeated Cloud9 Beast Coast yesterday, in the wild card. What series of matches we have today.
Nice drone spot there for Newers. Once again, outside of the vending window, transitioning back and forth between storage and vending. See the blitz return from Yaga. And again, we saw Kino fashioning himself some kill holes from up above in storage down towards the bomb site. Also, again, tried to attempt to put his face in the window with an M590. Doesn't garner the same success as it did in the previous round. We see lots of kitchen focus this time around for Oxygen. Been exo-sided for the majority of the pushes down to the basement with some support outside the assembly breach. But now we get to see Oxygen spread their legs a little bit, enter the map a little bit deeper than they have previously. Also employ this kitchen position, that's a bit of a pivot point, to go head on against some of the contention of the defense. Will be opting to hold from the main floor. They still got to worry about Spoit up above, top floor on the vigil with a boss G. That could be absolutely devastating, especially on a flank. If he goes unnoticed and undetected by the Oxygen attacking side, you're going to need to gather some intel, and they might even send Yaga for him topside, seemingly hearing the impact from up above. Exploit will rotate into meeting, drop Yaga down to 5 HP, but he's unable to deal the finishing blow. Gridlocked track stingers in the way of the meeting hallway. They'll slow any advances for Spoit in the time being, and everyone for Oxygen still standing, but they're going to have to be wary of the flank.
I mean, Blitz on 5 HP means you die to the shrapnel of a nitro cell, to the radius of an impact. It means you step on a goo mine, that's curtains. It means if you hit one of the electrified walls of the bandit, you're dead. So many things that will cause Yaga to have the end of the round. And there you go. Spotted by Spoit, and trades out Gomez. That's a hell of a shot after Kino had died moments before. This bodes well for OXG just based on the numbers, though. They've still got some utility here. They will use it for soft destruction. Also, those track stingers, but another trade has come out. These teams cannot give up on one another. They will dance and dance, and around they go. Hat and Diaz versus Citizen and Hyper with 30 seconds remaining, Rob.
Recovering the diffuser at the base of the Exo stairs. Frag grenade comes out just to try and cordon off anyone playing in the Nano hallway. But now Hyper will dig his heels inside of Nanotech, and Citizen inside of Tank will attempt to hold out the approach for Diaz and Hat. Hitting the goo mine on the default plant spot inside assembly, and now Hat will have to provide coverage. Nitro Cell being ripped from Hyper. Hat in position, but gets flanked upon through Exo. The plant is completed. Diaz with a nice snap, but he's down to 10 health, and as the bandit turns the corner, Diaz! The plant in the 1v2, even dealing with the flank pressure. It's Oxygen up 4-2 at the half.
You have to think that will break the back of M80 there, Rob. What a frustrating end to that half, and that round in particular for M80. Diaz taking matters into his own hands, and that very subtle head shake by Citizen tells you all you need to know. It was quite the engagement here. We got to see it in slow motion. Diaz immediately pumping for the camera. Oh my, oh my, oh my. Absolutely incredible stuff between these two teams.
Well, I think we're doing okay. I think the feed is trying to survive. I'm not sure what's being put out to the world, but internally,
it's completely frozen. For me.
It is frozen now. It's trying its best, man. The hamster wheel, it's at full tilt right now, Parker. It's trying its absolute hardest. But that is the first half completed. And Oxygen, like you said, on a map that inside of North America trends defensive favor. It's Oxygen winning 4 attacks. And again, opportunities for M80 just completely thrown to the wayside by some individual heroics, this time on the side of Oxygen. Man advantages that have been dropped. M80 losing 4 defensive rounds on Nighthaven. Already down 1-0 in the series of this best of 3. Means that Oxygen just need 3 more rounds in regulation on the defensive side of Nighthaven. They can go 3-3 in the second half, and they will still walk away with another 7-5 victory. Kino taking some damage from the electricity outside of the IT wall. Both breachers attempting to contend with the bandit batteries, but they will both be successful with the assist of 1 Thatcher EMPs. The IT wall gets opened up, and we see the return of Blitz. Citizen picking up the shield operator. We didn't see a single Blitz come out from M80 on Clubhouse. They seem to have changed their opinion on how they want to operate here on Labs.
See if M80 shield play can match up to what we saw from OXG. Though I will admit, from the very little sample size that we saw of that Blitz, the space that was made by the Blitz in most rounds was serviceable, but not ultimately great. I mean, there's a reason why you ban the Monty, right? And that's because Blitz just cannot do the same thing. Monty, far and away, the most banned attacker, miles ahead of Dokkaebi in second, who conveniently is also removed from this match due to the bans on the top. There goes Kino to Hat. A bit of a struggle for the shield as the follow-up from Cameraman was there, and oh my, are things over for M80. Spoit down, Hyper down. The only kill so far from OXG. Gomez is dead, and that round is over. M80 wanted to breach the bomb site. They did so successfully. M80 wanted to use that momentum to win the round. They did not do that successfully. OXG stops them in their tracks, and it's a 5-2 score line with OXG on the statistical better side and doing it on their own map.
And just as a whole, playing better than M80, it must be said. This Oxygen bears very little resemblance to the Oxygen we saw lose this map to Los during the group stage. This seems like an entirely new team and performing on a level that we haven't really seen out of them so far in stage 2. What a time to wake up in the last chance qualifier with the opportunity to send themselves to the grand finals of the LCQ. One more best of 3 away from attending the major in Montreal. Not something we would have said about Oxygen given maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe even a week ago. Certainly the tides have turned here for OXG and for M80. Again, one of these rounds where it feels like everyone takes a 1v1 and everyone dies in their 1v1, where it's just everyone trying to become the hero, everyone trying to play some hero ball and try and put it across the finish line themselves, and yet every single one of them stumbled before getting to the rim. And now for M80, like you said, 2 round losses away on the attacking side, away from being knocked out of the stage entirely, and looking towards potentially LCQs to qualify for the 6 Invitational, as SI points are also on the line here. And we've also got the opportunity to go to the Montreal Major as a whole on the line for M80. Again, we saw C9 Beast Coast fall at the hands of CL4L. Could it just be an upset stage across the board?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think that the defending major champs getting knocked out by a team that has never competed at a tier 1 level would happen, but I mean, there are very obvious issues with Cloud9 Beast Coast. The former coach of the team, Fett, has been doing a companion/co-stream where he's also been bringing in other players to talk about the fortunes of these teams. And I mean, there's no denying that Fett was a huge part, an instrumental part in that major win. His insight will be invaluable for C9BC as they've moved past him. He's gone on to greener pastures, aka he's escaped esports, at least for the time being. And I mean, he can diagnose those issues, and there's clearly something wrong. Citizen dies, Yaga gets caught looking in the wrong direction, so he's gone as well. 90 seconds remain, and it's a 4v4.
Citizen once again, the opening death on the Blitz, untraded, and now Gomez with a Nitro Cell onto Hyper Spoit. He's on 24 HP, and all of a sudden now, Cameraman is able to pick up Hat, but still health advantage. Actually, arguably, it's coming close. You got 26 health on Newers, you got 24 health on Spoit. This is an opportunity now for the Oxygen defense to put themselves on a not only match point, but series point. They continue to stall out M80's attack. Kino with the M590 tries to enter in through the garage hallway, but this is a basement defense. So still layers to try and pick through for the M80 side. Deathmark Tracker will come out from Kino, trying to establish the positioning of the cap can of Gomez. Downstairs he will spot it. The Animus hatch gets opened up all the same. Now we have the opportunity to see what a site execute looks like for M80 into the basement. This is a defensive objective that has been very strong in the favor of teams who have opted to play it so far. Oxygen seemingly the only ones who have found the key to success in attacking it. And now we have the opportunity to see if Oxygen can hold out to put themselves 1 round away from the grand finals.
The drop will need to come in, and it'll be done together. None of those death marks remaining from Kino. No isolation that can possibly be had. It will just be gunfights as all the pomp and circumstance that you see from M80 might not be enough. 5 seconds remain. Cameraman looking for an opening as they trade back and forth. Newers the last man standing. Kino on the duel. Newers can potentially get here. It's on 0-0-0. Will he get to Cameraman in time? Yes! Newers wins the round. OXG moves to series point.
It's another 1vx for Oxygen. Series point, grand finals point awaits Oxygen and an M80 team that continues to run afoul of the clock on the attacking side and run afoul of converting man advantages on the defensive side. It's a nightmare scenario for M80 and their fans as they now stare down the barrel of elimination from the last chance qualifier. They're going to have to hit 4 attacking rounds consecutively on Nighthaven Labs to be able to just put this into overtime. One mistake, and it is lights out, and Oxygen for the time being continue to survive in rounds that look daunting, in scenarios that look like they are stacked against them. They are the team that refuses to go down without a swinging fight, and they are continuing to come away with a victory at every possible turn. The determination and the perseverance for Oxygen has been remarkable so far through this series. So many rounds that look like that Oxygen have turned on its head. Now we stand one round away. It's storage and control for Oxygen to try and say sweet good nights to M80.
Attacker's objective is to defuse a bomb.
What a story it would be for OXG. For a variety of reasons, an organization that from the top has had some very obvious troubles in terms of ownership, not the actual players. I cannot imagine competing under those circumstances, not knowing if your org will still be around, if you will still have a team to call home. It's devastating, frankly. It's been shown on social media before with commitment to esports, and we are in an esports winter, as many would tell you, with esports orgs across every single game having some difficulties. OXG made some roster moves, and the big criticism in the offseason was, where is the leadership? Well, they're about to find out, aren't they? Oh my, Kino, you were in a bad place. He gets down to finish off. Not yet. Yaga dies. There goes cameraman. Kino is still down. It's secured by Newers, who's only getting better the longer that this matchup goes. 12 kills at this point. This run through the LCQs for M80 has not been easy. And now it falls on the shoulders of three gentlemen. Citizen, Spoit, and Hyper. All competing under flags from Europe, though Hyper and North American, despite playing with the Greek flag. There goes Spoit. Dropped. Citizen will have to retrieve if they want a chance in this round. Hyper finding an opening, though. Pummeling these two players. There goes Citizen, the newest addition to M80 against Diaz and Hat. One former player from M80 on the side of OXG still up. Hat will celebrate as both he and Diaz head downstairs, leaving Hyper all alone. How poetic would it be, Rob? The last player added to this team. Hyper's needed some time to get back in the swing of things. He's had some terrific games, and he shows that he can definitely still hang, but more reps, more improvement is likely the goal here. He's the only choice for M80 at this moment. The only chance of getting out of the LCQs in a good direction requires Hyper to win this round. Oxygen, after a dreadful stage 2, can taste the grand finals. The job would not be done. They would still need one more. They are giving Hyper absolutely nothing now. He must bring the fight to them. He had a read. It's long gone. Now he'll rope around through rafters before dropping. He's got diffuser, Rob. It's definitely doable. He springs on in. There goes the smoke. A Banshee will go off. They know exactly where he is, tucked in by the corner, by the window. He has in hot pursuit. The Nitro will blow M80's chances up. And it's Diaz cold as ice to secure the victory and send OXG from worst to potentially first, as they will compete in the LCQ Grand Finals with a spot at the Montreal Major on the line later tonight.
Like we said, give it a week ago, you probably would not be saying that this was likely for Oxygen, and yet here they stand, one best of 3 away from going to the Montreal Major. The Titans in this LCQ, they continue to fall, Parker. That's one more down. Now it's the opportunity for Oxygen to take a breather, have a break, and on the other side of this break, we'll see who comes away from the second semifinal to face OXG for a spot in Montreal.
Yes, I'm gonna drop.
In storage, in storage. Play the storage holes. He's in storage.
Go first,
He
go
can only
first.
play in storage.
Spawning, I'm going.
D4.
Go together, go together.
Nice! Let's fucking go,
Nice.
boys.
Let's go.
Oh my god,
bro.
bro. I couldn't speak for the
Let's
fucking
go, boys. Good fucking shit, bro. Y'all stay fucking calm,
Magic,
collective.
man.
That's how we do it, boys. Good shit.
Bye bye, Kino. Bye bye, Kino.
Let's go, boys. I'm fucking.
Well, M80's explosive run here in the playoffs and into the LCQ fizzles out against an Oxygen team that honestly looks more dangerous than we've seen them so far. That last map, that was as brutal of a beatdown as there's been in this stage, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I mean, I think we expected that map to go as it did, even before the game started. Obviously, just, again, not a good M80 map, but that doesn't mean that OXG didn't play phenomenally well. Getting a 4-2 split on the Attack Labs, I mean, that's nothing easy to accomplish. And I think the OXG that's focused, everybody is focused on the execute, on the game plan. It's not necessarily worried about kills anymore. It looks like a new lively team focused on the objective, and the kills follow suit. When you're just focused on getting the strat down, getting the case down, everything else just happens one after the other. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing. OXG finally looks like they're alive. They're speaking to each other. The communication, the energy, it seems like they want to be there. Finally, OXG wants to win. And even when they were losing the opening pick opening pick count, they weren't letting that stop them at all.
Yeah, I mean, to touch up on that, that first half, they went down 4 out of those 6 rounds of losing that man advantage, but bringing those rounds back, keeping their composure, keeping their plan still intact. And I mean, you got to give it to Oxygen. You know, this map pool, again, heavily favor them. I said it, if M80 couldn't muster out a win on that clubhouse, it was not going to look good going into layer. Just for the simple fact, the sample size, Oxygen played it once. They played it, what, 4 times now, given that they played it here. It just was not a good map for M80, so it was very shocking that they win here. But again, in terms of their overall performance and what we saw, they still look very discombobulated. They look disconjointed. They didn't look like they had a proper plan of how they wanted to meet Oxygen or to switch something up, where again, Oxygen was playing the utility correctly. Their teamwork was on point. Their trade game was on point. They were just doing everything just systematically better than what M80 has shown. So it's no surprise to me that Oxygen walks away with that first map and then doing it in a dominant fashion going into the second map. So I am very happy and proud that they have found success, given the huge hurdle that they just could not get over throughout this entire stage. So hats off to them, and I can't wait to see what they look like going into that grand final.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, obviously we haven't seen our next match, so we can't really tell exactly what that finals matchup is going to look like. But we saw both of those teams, CL for Life and Wildcard, play. Looking at the form that Oxygen has been in here, do you think they are now really the favorites to win that major spot?
Absolutely.
Ooh, I mean, I feel like that's definitely difficult to ask, because not only is Oxygen coming alive, but if we see a similar wild card to what we saw yesterday, I do think they are both favorites. If you talk about one team enough, you could convince either or to be the one that walks on top. But I do think OXG
disagreement.
I think OXG definitely looks like the scarier team. I would say the more explosive team. They are better on attack. I would say if we see the same wild card looks a little bit better on defense. That's all. But OXG still looks great.
I'll leave it. I'll leave it with that. I won't go too in depth. I'll just say Oxygen looks good overall.
They certainly do, and let's get one of those players who did look so good. Here's Gomez for our interview. Excited to wish you congratulations on a map well played right there, a match well played. Absolutely handed it to M80, so big ups to you guys. And Laxing wanted me to let you know that he's very impressed with how you guys are looking so far here in your LCQ run.
Thank you, I really appreciate it, Quebec. Lax too, thank you, Lax.
So I gotta ask, I mean, obviously M80, we saw some good stuff from them, like in the playoffs, we saw some good stuff from them even in the LCQ. Did you expect it to be quite so straightforward? I mean, you guys took it into the cleaners there on Labs.
I mean, we knew like Club was gonna be like a hard game because they're really good at that map and they have a lot of reps on it. But Labs, like, we just knew they had no idea we were gonna pick that map and they weren't gonna like prep for it. Like, we banned it against LG yesterday, so it wouldn't make sense for us to pick Labs. So we just knew Labs was gonna be easy and then Club hard.
So Fox noticed that Newers in particular looked super energetic, like in the cams, he was hyping you guys up. Is he like your hype man? Because you all look real energized compared to the group stage. Like, what's changed on the OXG side to get you to this point?
I think New is kind of our hype man, but he's also kind of like just like a funny guy. Like, he just brings the vibes, like always brings the vibes up. And then for the energy, I think like just like everyone's energetic. Like, I think we see the win now. Like, we're gonna make that major and everyone believes in it. So like, of course, like the vibes are better that way.
Yeah, I do actually like feel a sense of belief coming off you guys, which is cool to see. I mean, you've got finals coming up, obviously. Who do you think you're going to end up playing in that matchup, and how do you think you're going to beat them?
I mean, I don't really know who's gonna win. I think wildcard maybe win, but I don't really care who we play. I think the game will be easy, and we're just better. So I don't think it matters.
I love the confidence. That's great. I mean, it does genuinely feel like you guys have really hit your stride here when the chips were down. I mean, I just like one last question. How are you going to stay warmed up for that final? Because you got a while to wait now before it gets determined who you're up against.
Yeah, I mean, we're just gonna watch and like probably just play it a little bit ranked or something right before the game. That's pretty much it.
Well, I absolutely fear whoever has to face you in ranked right now coming off of that high, but congratulations, Gomez. Looking forward to seeing you guys play for your major spot later.
All right, thank you, quarterback.
It's confident. That's oozing it. They do not care who they're playing between CL for life or wildcard. They're going to beat them because they're better.
I hate this emoji that Fox is using in Discord right now of me. But I mean, yeah, the confidence is definitely key to their success so far. But I mean, you still got to give credit to Wildcard and CL for life. I mean, they demonstrated how well both these teams can play. They're both going to be a very formidable opponent for them. So obviously, they do get to sit pretty here for a while. They do get to watch this game. They do get to prep. But that confidence can, it can be a double-edged sword a little bit when you're finding yourself in a grand final where, that is it. That is what's going to determine everything.
Right. I mean, I don't think it's going to be an easy game nonetheless, but I do like the idea. I like the attitude going into it because confidence so far in this OXG roster, we haven't seen it all stage. And finally, they've been able to get over that mental hurdle. And now they do look like a brand new team. They look like a team that could have competed to go for the major spots in playoffs. Now, they only have one chance. You're right. Pressure will be stacked on top of them. But if they keep that confidence, I mean, that's in the right direction. It's in the right direction. So keep it up. And I'm really excited for the next game because, again, I don't think it'll be as easy as a game.
The truth is, in all sorts of sports, sometimes the team, they just hit their stride when the pressure's at its highest, and it kind of seems like that might be Oxygen. But we're going to determine who their opponent's going to be. Get some water, take a quick break, take a rest. We'll be back with CL for life versus Wildcard in just a few minutes.
Hi, I'm Hyper. I'm a player for M80, and we just won our first LCQ game.
Hey, I'm Gomez from OXG, and we just won our first game.
I guess I'll do this for the setup tour. It's a new mouse I got, and I love it. Ignore the design. It's like it's a WL mouse. It's from China or something. It was actually sold out, so I couldn't get a normal color. That's why all these weird like dog designs are on it. I'm not like a big fan of that stuff. I won't say it.
I play with this WL Beast X mouse. It's a new one for me. I like it very much. And of course, I'm using the Woodsing. Just need this to play. Mousepad, I don't like. Whatever.
It's just bad, man. But ever since I got her, I won a major. Before I didn't have her, I didn't. So she has to be good luck.
People would say I was narcissistic, but this is me. And then this is my beautiful team, and I have that sitting right next to me, and I look at it every time we lose a round, so I know that it's just temporary.
If I make the major, I'm taking this one right here. This is like my good luck charm right here.
I'll do Mayor McCheese, obviously. I always have him with me.
I'm not like superstitious really, so I don't want to say good luck charm. Bears are my spirit animal, I would say. And I also think this is it's funny. It's a little bear in a can. I actually get pulled over at security all the time because like they'll see my backpack and they'll be like, oh, you got like canned food in your bag, and then I literally start laughing when I pull this out. And especially in Canada, they always find it funny. So
it's total calamity, total mayhem inside of the server. Out of nowhere, they find their round back into their favor. Holding up for the blood, the race! And I think he might just find it!
Got you tulips in it. Hand up boss like communist. No, I can never ever get back all the things I missed. But I'm that man there, think you got the gist. your tulips in a twist.